Lord of the Mysteries, A Time Traveler in the Fourth Age by author Kai Yunji chapter 51-75. I never realized you were so dark before. Alice searched for a long time before pulling Sha'ir out from a hidden corner. She said speechlessly, "Because I don't want to accept their thanks. And it wasn't my intention to help them." Sha'ir was not used to this kind of situation. Why should he force himself to do something he was not good at when he had a substitute to speak for him? "Hey," Alice sneered. "Do you have anything else to say?" Sha'ir stretched out his hand and made a, "please," gesture. "If you have something to say, say it. If not, get lost. Please pay me my reward." Alice also stretched out her hand towards Sha'ir. "How many?" Sha'ir raised his eyebrows. 100 pounds. Alice gestured. "Okay, go find Martin and tell him I agree. You guys keep busy. I have nothing to do here. I'll leave first." Sha'ir glanced at the girl, nodded, turned around and left gracefully. "You really know how to order people around," Alice muttered as she looked at Sha'ir. She trotted back, tugged at Martin's sleeve, and said, "Your young master said that every child here should get a set of suitable clothes. If there is any surplus money, add it to the food that will be donated." Martin nodded. He didn't believe Alice would lie to him about such a thing. "How many gold pounds will the master allow me to use?" Martin thought about the last banquet when his wife had given him some money, so the expenses in the villa wouldn't be a problem for the time being, and he certainly wouldn't raise any objections. He donated an additional 100 pounds on top of the food he had planned to donate. "He's donated everything, wouldn't it be nice for you not to donate as well? Let's pool another 100 pounds. Really, don't ask me for this kind of thing next time. It's hard for me to save money." Alice held the small bag on her waist with a bit of pain in her hand and said that if it continued like this, she would never be able to save enough money to buy the materials for the Sequence 7 potion. She had to find a way to save up contributions. "The amount of my donation cannot exceed that of the young master." "Then I will donate 70 pounds, Miss Alice. Did the master pay you the reward just now?" Martin thought for a moment and asked. "I have, although not much. I originally thought I would have to lose 50 pounds, but now I only have to lose 30 pounds. Isn't it that I made a profit of 20 pounds just by turning the sale?" Alice's mood perked up again. "Where is the young master?" Martin asked in confusion, looking around. "He's gone. I asked you to follow me and continue to help. Anyway, I have free time in the afternoon. I can't just go to one orphanage. You said, 9 pence can buy 8 pounds of black bread. How much black bread can 100 pounds buy?" Alice was too lazy to calculate and asked Martin directly. "Gone. Master, you won't wait for me." Martin was a little hurt. He said casually, "About 20,000 pounds of brown bread. Then you go and make the arrangements. We'll look at a few more orphanages. You go and make the arrangements for the food. Don't send it all at once. Send a certain amount regularly. I'll find time to come and check on it." Alice patted Martin on the shoulder, signaling him to use his connections to get to work. "Miss Alice, what about you? Don't we have to visit other orphanages?" Martin asked with a sigh. "Wait a moment, there are a few smart kids who are almost learning the nursery rhymes I taught them." Alice said this, and ran over to the group of children and began to sing again. Martin just watched the group of children singing nursery rhymes in an ignorant manner. Some of the orphanage caregivers who could not understand Intis thought Alice's singing was beautiful, so they sang along and praised the sun together. He had some admiration for Miss Alice, who was able to find ways to spread her faith even though they didn't speak the language. "Young master too, do you really not mind Miss Alice doing this? If we are discovered by the clergy of the Church of Storms." Martin was suddenly stunned when he thought about it. It seemed like people from the church wouldn't come to the orphanage for no reason, right? He couldn't even hear the children's song sung with a strong country accent clearly. Moreover, Miss Alice also holds the status of a low-level priestess at the Intis embassy. She doesn't even know Lonus. Does the Church of Storms want to accuse a little girl from Intis who doesn't know Lonus of preaching in Backland? It would be more convenient to arrest the translator first. After the mind of Tao is clear. Shah-Ir came to the Backland Library alone. He randomly found some history books about Intis. The apparent history was much the same as he knew it, though more detailed in some places. From 1143 to 1173, the struggle history of Archon Rossel. The kingdom of Intis was defeated in the war with the Fasak Empire and was burdened with high debts. The domestic economy was on the verge of collapse, and the Sauron family was in civil strife, with its strength and control significantly declining. As a colonel, Rossel instigated a revolution, overthrew the weak Solon family, established a republic, and appointed himself as consul. Old Huang is still following Napoleon's script. You are really amazing to overthrow an angel family. Although the script of the emperor is ominous in his later years, even if he is re-established, it is still ominous. Shah-Ir's mouth curled slightly. The subsequent history was roughly similar. In 1197, Emperor Rossel was betrayed and assassinated by the Church of the Eternal Sun, the Sorin family and other nobles, and died in the White Maple Palace. He found no trace of himself in the apparent history. There may be traces from the side, and the Sauron family's influence on Intis is still relatively high. I don't know if this counts. He picked up a few pages of Russell's diary transcripts next to him, intending to refer to them and write something for Mr. Fool. He planned to write less diaries so as not to put too much psychological pressure on Klein. Mr. Fool couldn't give himself anything decent. Just as Shah-Ir was about to immerse himself in the Emperor's extremely wild handwriting, a flash of white came into his field of vision. He glanced at it from the corner of his eye and saw that it was coming towards him. "Excuse me, can I sit here?" Phoenicia walked up to Shah-Ir in a black long dress, leaned down slightly, lifted up her scattered hair and asked. "You are big, you are white, you are free to do whatever you want." Shah-Ir put down the book in his hand, propped up his head and looked at the witch and said, "Since our good brother has taken the initiative to distribute benefits, we should not let him down." The witch smiled and sat gracefully next to Shah-Ir. Shah-Ir was not polite either. A small knife slipped out from his sleeve and with a light cut, he cut the witch's black dress into a high-slit dress. The slit of the skirt almost reached the base of the thigh, revealing a pair of perfect long legs, round and full, yet slender. The silver knife flexibly turned twice between his fingertips and then hid back into his sleeve. Phoenicia felt the chill on her legs. She looked down and saw that the hem of her skirt had been torn open. She curled her lips and covered her cheeks with the book. "You're pretending to be so cute." Shah-Ir glanced at the other people in the library. They were all doing their own things, as if they didn't notice this place. "Aren't you afraid of being seen by others?" Phoenicia put down the book and looked at Shah-Ir with a hint of shyness and charm in her eyes. "Oh, is that what you mean?" Shah-Ir touched her thigh, pinched it, and said to the sequence 4 Witch of Despair. "I'm not afraid of being seen, but if you are seen, it will affect your reputation, right? I haven't congratulated you yet on graduating early and becoming a formal clergyman." Phoenicia snorted, slapped Shur's hand away, and drew a crimson moon on her leg. "You are right. The church does not advocate keeping a lover, but you are a nightingale passing by. I was just seduced by you. The goddess will forgive me." Shah-Ir tapped 4 times on his chest, drawing a crimson moon. His character even dares to play basement play, so what's wrong with being a little arrogant now? "Are you a demigod? How would I know if you don't tell me? You didn't invite me to the celebration party. Do you know how sad I was?" The witch lifted her legs and placed her round thighs on Shah-Ir's legs. "Isn't this a matter of course? How could I possibly invite you?" Shah-Ir picked up Rossel's diary again and started reading it. "Did I do something wrong?" Phoenicia slowly moved closer and reached out to touch Shah-Ir's cheek. Her actions were somewhat ambiguous, but no one else in the library paid attention to them. Even if someone looked over occasionally, they would only see 2 people reading normally. The illusion of the demigod level, which is too easy to deceive the senses of these ordinary people. Nothing bad. Shah-Ir turned a page of Rossel's diary and read the Emperor's famous words. "The taste of being a witch is really good. I think I can do better." Phoenicia said almost in Shur's ear. Shah-Ir could almost smell the sweet, blood-stirring fragrance. He glanced at the witch. "You're free today, aren't you? I have time tonight." The witch leaned over and blew gently into his ear. "Then help me copy these Grossel texts. The library doesn't allow me to take it away." Shah-Ir pushed the feather pen and blank paper on the side over. He didn't need to go through so much trouble, but there was no more heartfelt way to torture someone than to make him copy books as punishment. "What about you?" Panatia's bright smile became somewhat dangerous. "What do you think?" Shah-Ir held the witch in his arms, buried his head in her fair neck, and smelled the body fragrance that seemed addictive. "Copy it." He gently pushed the witch's long hair down. "What's the meaning of these incomprehensible Grossel words?" Phoenicia thought about it and did not refuse. She picked up the quill pen, dipped it in ink and began to copy it. She had been interested in Grossel's code before, but she lost interest when she couldn't crack it. "I'm just interested in these things that might be related to the occult. Please make a copy and I'll take it back for my collection." Shah-Ir said this, closed his eyes, and leaned against the witch pillow to take a nap. "I have something else to do this afternoon." Phoenicia shook her messy hair gently and said, "Turn it off. Even if you want to go see the king, turn it down." Shah-Ir closed her eyes and hugged him a little tighter. The witch's charm was still effective. "The texture of this pillow was really good. You just bully me. Why don't you tell the king?" Phoenicia wanted to teach Shah-Ir a lesson, but the breathing sound beside her was even and steady. She wanted to teach him a lesson, so she had to wake him up first. This was a library, and it would be inappropriate to make too much noise. Although she doesn't have to meet the king later, she has to meet people from the royal family. Phoenicia tapped the table lightly with her quill, looking somewhat distressed. She could have just said that she was being entangled by people from the Orthodox Church. The Witch of Despair glanced at her hands that were loosely wrapped around her, shook her head, and began to carefully copy the Grossel text on the table. In any case, one of her goals was achieved. This guy did become a Bieber and joined the Church of Night. Her identity as a wild Bieber was exposed, but the other party did not expose her. This was very interesting. Observe for a while longer. If it doesn't work, get rid of all the people who have seen you in the villa at night. This seemingly quiet and introverted lady was copying books while thinking about how to wipe her butt clean. The accidental death of a clergyman of the Church of Evernight would definitely trigger an investigation by the church. Even if he had a high enough anti-divination ability and could get rid of everyone who had seen him, it would be difficult for him to move freely in Backland afterwards. She had indeed not expected that Shah-Ir would join the Church of Evernight 2 years in advance. Time goes by. When Shah-Ir woke up, it was almost time for the library to close. "Are you awake? How did you sleep?" Phoenicia turned sideways and leaned into Shur's arms and asked. "I slept well and didn't catch a cold. Your fireplace is very good." Shah-Ir didn't expect that the witch didn't poison him. He was ready to use the resentful spirit to avoid a wave of biological toxins. "It was a little late, but I still finished copying it." The witch handed the copied paper on the table to Shah-Ir. Shah-Ir took a look and found that it was indeed copied carefully. The witch's handwriting beautifully copied Lao Huang's bold style. "Thanks for your hard work." Shah-Ir patted the witch and signaled her to move away, saying that he was going to return the book. The witch moved her butt and saw Shah-Ir packing up the books, papers, and quills, then followed him. After Shah-Ir returned the book, he frowned slightly and asked, "Why are you still following me?" Phoenicia turned around, her high-slit skirt fluttering, and the witch's legs were faintly visible. "Then come with me." Shah-Ir thought that since the witch had already retreated 8 or 9 steps, it was not impossible for him to take one more step. He took Phoenicia out of the library and got into his own private carriage. The carriage started moving, and Shah-Ir looked at Grossel's diary that the witch had copied. Because he still needed to pretend, he spread out several pages of the diary and looked at them together as if for comparison. June 3rd, April 21st, December 20th. Shah-Ir read these diaries page by page, which he was more or less familiar with. Just when he scanned a page, there were some waves in his heart, but there was no sign of anything unusual on his face. He naturally compared it with the other diaries. On October 2nd, Zeratul came to visit me again. He hopes that I, who have entered the realm of demigods, can fulfill my promise and help him steal the dangerous seal from the church. It is a notebook from the Antigonus family of the 4th epoch, A1, level sealed artifact. Oh, I'll have to decide based on the situation. If it's easy to steal and there's no risk of exposure, I'll give it a try. The thief Jacob is also interested in this notebook. Rather than letting him get it, I'd rather help Zeratul. Shah-Ir shifted his gaze and looked at the witch who was sitting there casually. He put away the diaries, drew a crimson moon on his chest, and closed his eyes as if he was praying. Jacob. How could Russell be related to Jacob's family? Is this my influence? Shah-Ir thought to himself, judging from Russell's tone, this doesn't sound like a friend. The Witch of Despair frowned slightly as she watched Shah-Ir's actions. Just as she was about to make a move, she saw Shah-Ir open his eyes and whispered to her. Praise the goddess. After Shah-Ir finished praising the goddess of night, he just stared at the Witch of Despair. Praise the goddess. The desperate witch curled her lips and followed Shah-Ir to draw a scarlet moon, praising the goddess believed in by the witch church. Since we are all believers of the goddess, then as a clergyman, I shouldn't treat you the same way as before. I won't lock you in the basement. Shah-Ir hinted euphemistically. Phoenicia smiled, took out a small makeup mirror, and simply tied up her hair. Does it look good? She looked at Shah-Ir and smiled. You shine like a star in the night sky. Shah-Ir was generous with his praise. He had never seen an ugly demigod witch. It was just that there were too many witches and it felt a bit overwhelming. Panatia's eyes lit up, and reflections of Shah-El seemed to appear in her eyes, and the dressing mirror in her hand also glowed faintly. Shah-Ir's eyes gradually became empty, as if he had lost the ability to think. He looked at Phoenicia with a dull gaze, as if he was looking at another impressive person. How did you join the Church of Night in advance? Phoenicia controlled Shah-El through mirror illusion and mystical poison and began to interrogate him. This was a plague she developed specifically for the occult that affects the mental body. I became a secret praying person by accident. Shah-Ir said with dull eyes. Secret prayer. There was a trace of surprise on Panatia's beautiful face. Didn't the Church of Darkness take you in? The expression of this desperate witch was a little bit unbelievable. Can the Church of Darkness accept secret praying people? I am a believer in the goddess. Shah-Ir instinctively tapped his chest 4 times, drawing a crimson moon. Hee hee. Phoenicia chuckled twice, and I don't know if she was mocking the hypocrisy of the church. Those who have no connections will be severely punished, and those who have connections will be given a chance to test. Why didn't you report me to the church? Phoenicia asked curiously. The church does not forbid us to maintain certain contacts with wild extraordinary people. This can sometimes be a channel for obtaining intelligence and exchanging resources. Besides, you are beautiful enough, and you haven't caused me much harm. There is nothing abnormal about your behavior. I believe you are a controllable wild Beander. Shale added. What if I were a witch? Do you know what a witch is? Phoenicia tapped her cheek and asked casually. A witch who spreads disasters. I have heard countless bad things about witches since I was a child. Shah-Ir still answered in a dull manner. Hey. Phoenicia moved her fingers slightly, and her hair seemed to come alive, spitting out its tongue like a little snake. But I've never seen a witch. The church shouldn't kill all witches with one blow. We can recruit some and kill the others. Shah-Ir continued under hypnosis. Oh, which part shall be killed? Which part shall be left? Phoenicia became somewhat interested, and the little snake that was about to kiss her stopped for a moment. Kill the disobedient ones and leave the obedient ones. Shah-Ir seemed not to see the danger in front of him and continued to speak his true feelings. Isn't it divided by evil? Phoenicia continued to ask. I am just an ordinary clergyman. I cannot define what is evil. Shah-Ir felt that he was quite evil. So do you think I should be beaten to death? Phoenicia asked, raising her head slightly. You don't have to be beaten to death. You've been quite obedient and even copied books for me. Shah-Ir shook his head stiffly. Since you are also obedient, I will not kill you this time. Continue to live, secret praying man of the Church of Evernight. I am looking forward to the day when you are executed by the church itself. Phoenicia shook her head, and her puffy hair became smooth again. She took a small dressing mirror and began to put on her makeup, erasing any traces of mysticism at the same time. Shah-Ir continued to remain stiff, calculating how long this mental plague would take effect. He also knew a little about this occult plague, which was developed by studying the audience. 49, Civilis Street, West End. Shah-Ir got off the carriage, waved to the coachman, signaling him to leave, then reached out to help Phoenicia get off. I like this skirt. Phoenicia looked down and said regretfully that the black dress had become a high slit. You shouldn't wear a long skirt twice. I'm sure you'll like the new one. Shah-Ir didn't mind compensating the witch with a skirt. He helped Phoenicia walk towards his villa. Martin came out in a hurry. When he saw the witch, he was stunned and quickly gave Shah-Ir a hint with his eyes. Martin, please ask someone to design a new dress for Ms. Phoenicia later. Shah-Ir saw Martin's constant eye hints, and he seemed to understand something, so he said. Martin, take Panna. What are you arguing about? After working hard for a long time, Alice, who came to eat, walked out of the villa and saw Phoenicia being supported by Shah-Ir. Who is this? Phoenicia smiled slightly. She took Sher's arm, half leaned on him and asked. Martin looked at Alice's eyes that kept looking at him, and the increasingly charming smile on Panadia's face. He was so anxious that he almost sweated, and he only hated why he didn't come out earlier. This is Alice, my friend. It will be easier for her to like you if you speak Intis. Alice, this is Ms. Phoenicia, my etiquette teacher. Martin, take Ms. Phoenicia upstairs to rest. I'm going to tidy up the study and organize some things. If Alice is hungry, go to the kitchen and tell the chef what you want to eat. Shah-Ir arranged everything with just 3 sentences. Martin breathed a sigh of relief and quickly took Phoenicia to the guest room to rest. Shah-Ir was about to go to the study with the materials he had sorted out in the library, while Alice tugged at the corner of Shah-I's clothes from behind. What's wrong? Shah-Ir looked at Alice, who was somewhat active, with confusion. Do you trust my instincts? Alice leaned in close to Shah-Ir and whispered. Just tell me if you have something to say. Shah-Ir rolled his eyes. Well, I just want to ask, where did you find such a high-quality bitch? Alice asked curiously. She had never seen anyone as coquettish as her in Trier. Shah-Ir's mouth twitched when he heard this. He pulled at his clothes but couldn't pull it out. I picked it up on the road, okay. He pulled out his clothes with all his strength. You have a very good eye. Alice gave a thumbs up. Gun. Seeing that the blonde girl looked like she was being genuinely complimented and not mocking, Shah-Ir withdrew his national quintessence and turned away. Hey, wait a minute, don't say I don't take care of you. You definitely can't handle this kind of woman. Remember to ask me to do a purification tomorrow. You don't want to get sick, do you? I'll give you 20% off. If you hear me, don't leave. Don't leave. I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of bitches like this. Bang. Shah-Ir finally got some peace and quiet after he shut the study door heavily. He could not hide the surprise on his face. No, are you sick? What is the mental state within the Church of the Eternal Sun? Shah-Ir felt a chill when he thought of Alice's expectant look, which seemed to ask, when are you going to fuck her? Osakis, I fuck you. Nothing happened overnight. The next day, Shah-Ir went to work as usual. He now believes in the goddess of night even more. Other churches are just a bunch of crap. The Storm Church looks pretty good in comparison. Shah-Ir, what's with the dark circles under your eyes? Senior Grey looked at Shah-Ir in confusion. I went to the East End last night and re-established the rules of the Hilly Party with 2 of my men and dealt with some of the troubles involved. Shah-Ir glanced at Allison and said nothing. He was quite annoyed last night, really annoyed. He felt like the more he did, the more mistakes he made, as if by wanting to take care of a group of people, he would encourage other women to join this industry. Directly increase the share ratio pass. The food is provided, their eyes are bright. Better treatment, pass. He was also very troubled. Fortunately, he was still able to control it. Before developing new business, he was able to dispel some of these women's ideas by providing collective security. Before they actually use this collective security, they probably won't believe that the money will really be used for them. It will only take a few days to completely control a few streets and assign normal jobs to the women who are forced to make a living. It's about women. Senior Grace said it all. Don't talk, I have a headache. Shah-Ir knew that when he was tired, it meant that he needed to hire a temporary worker who was responsible, had a sense of justice, and was familiar with the grassroots. July 7th, Saturday, early morning. Klein received a revelation in his dream and found the location of the Antigonus family notes. Captain Dunn led the way, and Klein, Leonard, Old Neil, and Fry worked together to find a building, where they saw an old woman named Katie Bieber who had died from the contamination of the power of the note. After preliminary investigation, it was confirmed that the missing note was related to the old woman's son, Riel Bieber, who had also disappeared. Evening, 8 o'clock. Shah-Ir was invited to a banquet at the home of Congressman Matched at 39 Bachland Street. This mansion was equally luxurious, no less luxurious than the villa that Shah-Ir rented on Sivla Street. But the fountain shining under the lights always reminded Shah-Ir of the dirty fountain at the entrance of the university, and he unconsciously felt uncomfortable when entering the school gate. Martin followed behind Shah-Ir, holding a gift box in his hand. Congressman Matched's family sent out invitations a week in advance. Although Mrs. Maynard suddenly decided to hold a banquet in advance, there were too many guests at the banquet and Shah-Ir did not have much conversation with the Matched family. Entering the gate, he saw the Matcheds coming towards him and he walked up to greet them politely. "I've been looking forward to this day since last week." Shah-Ir handed the gift box, whose contents were unknown, to Congressman Matched. "It won't let you down." Maury Matched patted Shah-Ir on the shoulder. "Can I ask you to dance later?" Shah-Ir looked at Lady Liana, took her slightly raised right hand and gave it a kiss. "Of course, Hazel, come over and say hello." Lady Liana smiled and beckoned her daughter over. Bachland's upper-class circle was just that small, and both families were new party members, so they were not strangers. "Uncle Maury, Aunt Liana, you don't have to go out of your way to entertain me." Shah-Ir bowed to the Matched couple, then waved his hand gently, indicating that Hazel should follow him in and sit down, and there was no need to stand there. When Hazel saw that Shah-Ir was more casual than her, she was too lazy to go through the greeting process again and followed Shah-Ir to find a seat in the hall and sit down. The Matcheds looked at each other and started chatting with their friends. Tonight's party is a private gathering among friends and there are not so many rules. Shah-Ir sat on the sofa and casually looked at the girl next to him. Her dark green wavy long hair was very eye-catching. He now had some interest in the Jacob family. Perhaps this Miss Hazel should give up her chance. "What are you looking at?" Hazel looked over with her bright dark brown eyes. "How are your grades in school lately?" Shah-Ir smiled. "Of course my grades are first class." Hazel didn't quite understand why Shah-Ir was talking about this. If it weren't for the fact that this guy seemed to have joined the church early for some reason, Hazel wouldn't have bothered to talk to Shah-Ir anymore. So proud. Is this what it means to be an extraordinary person? So early. It's also romantic to get a third place occasionally. Shah-Ir joked. That's what you think. Hazel didn't buy Shah-Ir's trick at all. As you wish. Shah-Ir picked up the wine and took a sip. When Hazel saw that Shah-Ir no longer paid attention to her, she couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. "How did you graduate from seminary early and join the church?" Shah-Ir glanced at the girl and gave her a look that showed he understood. Hazel was suddenly annoyed. Is this looking down on her? She is the one who looks down on others. "Are you still interested in the occult?" Hazel asked as if casually. "Yeah, more like that," Shah-Ir said perfunctorily. He shook the wine glass in his hand and stared at the red wine in the glass in a daze. It was a pity that he couldn't contact the demigod Jacob on behalf of Hazel. You are so proud. You must have become a Beander. Is this the potion formula given by Flora Jacob? Hazel felt even more unhappy when she saw Sha'ir treating her so perfunctorily. Although she had promised her teacher not to reveal her identity as a person with supernatural powers casually, there should be no problem in showing off a little bit of her skills. She stretched out her hand and swept it quickly, trying to take something from Sha'ir's pocket to show him what she could do. She could vaguely feel that there seemed to be something of some value there. This Sequence 9 thief easily stole a silver talisman. While she was still wondering what this was, Sha'ir flicked her head. He showed no mercy, and Hazel almost cried out of pain, but she forced herself to hold it back, still wondering how her perfect theft could have been discovered. You've become more capable. Sha'ir put the goblet in his hand on the table and said. How did you find out? Hazel looked at Sha'ir unwillingly. Her supernatural ability was cracked just like that. She had succeeded several times before. Your hand speed is quite fast. Then peel some fruit for me. Sha'ir took an apple from the tray in front of him and threw it to Hazel, handing her a knife. Who wants to peel the apple for you? Hazel said so, but since she was caught, she could only peel the apple obediently. Her hands were very steady, and she peeled an apple in just a few strokes without hurting herself. Give. Hazel handed over the apple. Cut it into small pieces. I can't eat such big pieces. Sha'ir's master is ill and he can't eat the food he is used to. Aren't there cut apples on the table? Hazel pointed to the apple pieces on the table with bamboo sticks. I only eat apples that catch my eye. Stop talking nonsense, do you want to cut it or not? Sha'ir signaled Hazel to hurry up with his eyes. Phew. Hazel took a deep breath, she glanced at the silver talisman still in her hand, and finally endured it, cutting the apple in her hand into small pieces. This time, she moved the knife more brutally, as if she wanted to cut 3 holes in the apple. Thanks a lot. Sha'ir picked up a piece of apple with a bamboo stick and did not forget to say thank you. Can you tell me what this is now? Hazel raised the silver talisman in her hand, and she didn't even put down the dinner knife. This is a low-level spell commonly used in churches. You can call it a sleeping spell. It probably calms ghosts, phantoms, zombies, and water ghosts. Sha'ir said this and ate another piece of apple. This spell was taught to me by Senior Sister Grey. After all, I have joined the Church of Evernight, and I would feel a bit lost if I don't learn something from the Church of Evernight. This thing is just right for making nests. So cool. Hazel didn't say anything, but the hand holding the talisman tightened a little unconsciously, and 2 not-so-obvious symbols were written in her bright eyes. Want to? I made this myself. If you like it, I'll give it to you as a gift. Sha'ir did not continue to whet the girl's appetite. The materials for the sleeping spell itself are not that expensive, and performing ritual magic and praying to the goddess of night does not cost money either. Thanks. How much is this charm worth? I will give you a gift in return. Although Hazel really wanted the talisman, she was too proud to take something from someone else for free. The materials cost only a few pounds. Compared to this, do you know the church's attitude towards wild beyonders like you? Sha'ir's tone seemed to be saying, girl, you're done. Beyond the ordinary. What is that? However, Hazel looked over blankly. She had no idea what a beander was. This kind of clear stupidity is really missed. Creatures that gain supernatural powers by taking potions are called beyonders. Do you know what the church's attitude toward people like you is? Think carefully, why didn't you know so much about beyonders before? Sha'ir deliberately made the matter sound serious. Hazel was frightened as expected. Thinking of what her teacher had said about not revealing one's abilities, all sorts of terrible things quickly flashed through her mind, and even the hand holding the dinner knife was shaking slightly. Hold on tight. If your hand shakes and the knife flies out, you'll be attacking officials, you know that. Sha'ir glanced at the silver glowing table knife and signaled the girl with his eyes to give up resistance and not to struggle fearlessly. You're lying to me, aren't you? Hazel didn't obey. Although her voice was trembling, she held the dinner knife even tighter in her hand. She suppressed her anxiety and did not go to see her parents. You guessed it right, I lied to you. You're such an idiot, how could I possibly expose you? Shah-Ir laughed, and the seriousness on his face disappeared. Phew. Hazel breathed a sigh of relief, but before she could get angry, Shah-Ir's voice rang in her ears again. Can you put the knife down now? What do you care? Hazel glared at Shah-Ir and hid the knife in her hand behind her back. How are you talking to me? I am your only connection in the mysterious world, and you are not even willing to call me brother. Shah-Ir said with a smile. When did you become so rude? Hazel's face was almost red with anger. Then I can only talk to Uncle Mori about your future education. Uncle Mori was a major when he served in East Balam. Although he may not be a Beander, he must have seen one. Shah-Ir said as he was about to stand up. Brother. The sound was like a dream talk. If it weren't for Shah-Ir's good hearing, he would have almost not heard it. He sat down again and looked at Hazel, who lowered her head and clutched the hem of her skirt, wondering. Were you calling me? Hazel didn't respond. It doesn't seem to be. Shah-Ir shook his head and was about to continue pretending when a sharp table knife was waved in front of him. Don't go too far. Hazel suddenly raised her head, her pretty face flushed, and she looked at Shah-Ir with gritted teeth. I'm doing this for your own good. You don't know that entering the extraordinary world means you may encounter danger at any time. If I don't tell Uncle Mori about your situation, I would be irresponsible to you. Shah-Ir was not threatened at all. How could he be shaken on a matter of principle because of the coercion of evil forces? Elder brother. Hazel managed to squeeze out the title with difficulty. She looked at Shah-Ir with fire in her eyes, and was so angry that she almost crushed the talisman in her hand. If the other party was still not satisfied, she would definitely stab this bastard to death. Shah-Ir responded. He looked at the girl who was about to explode with anger, rolled his eyes at her and said, Don't think you're at a loss. You will find out in the future that the most important person you can meet in the mysterious world is me, the one you are pointing a knife at now. HMPH. Hazel snorted in dissatisfaction. What are you bragging about? You are far inferior to my teacher. What sequence 9 potion did you take? Shah-Ir asked knowingly. Thief. This is not the meaning of a thief. Our dream is to steal people's hearts, steal spells, cheat rules, and deceive fate. Hazel was worried that Shah-Ir looked down on her, so she deliberately told her what her teacher had told her. She had actually promised the teacher that she would not reveal her identity voluntarily, but now it was exposed passively, so she could only fool around with it for the time being. If she wasn't worried about exposing the teacher, how could she be threatened by this guy to say such embarrassing words? How much do you know about the mysterious world? Before starting the literacy campaign, Shah-Ir planned to first understand the girl's cultural level. Hazel was silent, looking away. The person who sold you the potion formula is truly an extraordinary person. Take this as your first lesson. The mysterious side has a lot in common with the real side, and that is that no one is obligated to take you there for free. Selling you real potion formulas and potion materials is already a matter of conscience. Knowledge has a price. If I wasn't afraid that you would foolishly kill yourself and make Aunt Liana sad, I wouldn't bother to take you with me. Shah-Ir leaned on the sofa, shaking his wine glass and drinking comfortably. Hazel clenched and unclenched her hands on her knees, and then clenched and unclenched them again, and kept reminding herself in her heart that this bastard was doing this for her own good. Did he mean for himself to doubt the teacher? Although the teacher didn't tell me a lot, she was at least very gentle and her words were never so irritating. Hazel lowered her head tightly, listening to Shah-Ir belittling her from head to toe, and she held back without saying a word in rebuttal. The attitude is acceptable. Shah-Ir's emotional value was greatly satisfied. If this was her own sister, she would have overturned the sofa he was sitting on. Brother, can you teach me? Hazel took a few deep breaths and tried to make the smile on her face less stiff. Well, let me tell you briefly. At this stage, there are roughly 3 types of extraordinary people. The first type is official forces, such as the royal families of various countries and the Orthodox Church. The second type is various secret organizations that have no mainstream status and have always been secretive. The third type is wild extraordinary people, who are unorganized and have no affiliation, such as you. The first category can be understood as the secret police. The second category can be understood as the gangs. Gangs may not all be bad people, but there are not many good people either. The third category has a more complex composition and a more difficult living environment. This is because while the church is suppressing secret organizations, it is also wary of these wild beyonders. Shaw Ayer's explanation gave Hazel a general idea. Are the Orthodox Church and the governments of various countries worried that wild beyonders will use these superpowers to commit crimes? She asked confusedly. The girl felt a little wronged. She didn't mean to break the law, but she was implicated anyway. That's one reason. Another reason is that wild beyonders don't have comprehensive knowledge of mysticism, and they may lose control due to emotions or other reasons. When you lose control, you become a monster, a very ugly one. Even the most beautiful out-of-control person is not much better looking than a rotten apple. The power of the mysterious side exists in many forms, such as the amulet I gave you. If you come into contact with a cursed, dangerous object, you will be in danger. Mysteries attract each other. Extraordinary people are more inspired and more likely to perceive dangers that ordinary people cannot perceive. As a Beyander of the church, I can help you keep your affairs secret and not ask you how you became an Beyander. But if you come into contact with anything, or some items, or some knowledge, in the future, you must let me check it for you. This is for your sake, as well as Uncle Maury and the others. Do you understand? Shaw Ayer's long speech confused Hazel, and the noble girl nodded blankly. Now, I'm hungry and I want to eat a steak. Shaw Ayer pointed to the buffet on the dining table on the other side. Hazel stood up and took a tray to help Shaw Ayer get a piece of steak. The girl had a simple mind. Since knowledge has a price, and this guy told her so much for free, she should do something in return. From a distance, Mrs. Liana was happy to see that her always proud daughter was finally willing to get along well with people of her own age. However, Congressman Matched looked a little unfriendly. He wanted his precious daughter's help to get a plate. This banquet just passed like this. Shaw Ayer had no intention of directly contacting the potential thief demigod for the time being. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Sunday, July 8th. Shaw Ayer chose to skip work. He was originally helping Senior Gray, and on Saturdays and Sundays, when there was not much to do, the two of them had discussed that one of them would be on duty while the other could do his own thing, as long as he didn't stray too far from St. Samuel's Church. Both of them were protected by familiar bishops. Senior Gray was also responsible for intelligence analysis, which made her busier, while Shaw Ayer only had to organize some documents. He had a very pleasant internship. The public school was closed on Sunday, so Hazel didn't have to go to school. The Mock's house was very close to St. Samuel's Church, so Shaw Ayer simply went to the Mock's house to slack off, and taught Hazel some common sense such as acting. It was also fun to have a naughty but obedient little sister. Monday, July 9th, 2:58 p.m. Shaw Ayer sat in the office of St. Samuel's Cathedral and wondered how Klein found the time every Monday. Doesn't the night watchman team in Tingan City have to work in the afternoon? Why not have the party on Monday night? Or Sunday? Senior Allison, my stomach feels a little uncomfortable. Shaw Ayer said as he lay on the desk, holding his stomach. Haha, you feel uncomfortable when you go to work. Or do you also have your menstrual period to deal with? Allison Gray could see at a glance that Shaw Ayer just wanted to go to the bathroom with pay. Whatever you want, don't expect me to do your job for you anyway. Allison said without looking up at the telegram header from Tingan in her hand. Is there no one in the tarot club except me who needs to punch in for work? Shah-Ir thought about it for a moment, and finally walked towards the bathroom silently with a box of tissues. Above the gray fog, there is a mysterious palace that looks like the residence of a giant. Shah-Ir opened his eyes and saw a familiar scene. Ladies and gentlemen, have you found Rosel's diary? Fool, Klein asked with his hands folded. Shah-Ir tapped his fingertips twice casually, and then noticed a scrutinizing look from the person beside him. His finger made a subtle eye-poking motion on the table, and the audience's gaze disappeared. Justice turned his observation object to the hanged man, and Alger instinctively retracted his outstretched arm. I found 2 pages. 1 page. Alger and Audrey said in turn. 1 page. When Shah-Ir said 1 page, the lady in the audience's eyes flashed. She clearly guessed 2 pages. Very good. Mr. Fool was very satisfied with the harvest. We will now. Audrey asked calmly, scaring Mr. Fool into keeping the same action for a long time. He would rather remain motionless than give Miss Justice a small warning. Shah-Ir didn't know when he would be able to be so considerate. His palm turned over, without touching the dark red pen manifested by the fool. His fingertips touched the yellow-brown parchment, and he spiritually quickly edited a page of Rosel's diary. The other 2 did not have Shah-Ir's means. They held the pens and completed the materialization of the words with the help of the power of the gray fog. Klein glanced at the angel, transferred 4 pages of the diary, and began to read. The content of Rosel's diary is roughly as follows. I, a part-time pirate, explored a mysterious island. I originally planned to have a free love relationship, but I found that marriage was not impossible. I really liked the title of Son of Steam. The Church of the God of Craftsmen gave me 2 choices. I chose generalist, and started to be a copycat. Klein quickly finished reading the 3 pages of the diary, and then looked at the last page provided by the angel. On February 21st, I tried to contact Zeratul again but to no avail. Ever since I got the Antigonus notebook, the leader of this secret society has been like a thief on guard, appearing less and less frequently. I would like to participate and see what secrets these ancient families that have survived from the 4th era are hiding. Klein's pupils shrank when he saw what was written in the diary. He continued reading, but there was nothing more. Only 1 page. Shah-Ir helped Mr. Fool of Sequence 9 to filter out the other less important diaries, and he also decided to cancel the 1 page of the gossip diary that he had originally prepared because of Miss Justice. Shah-Ir was not in a hurry to collect Rosel's diaries, since Bernadette might have the complete set anyway. Klein didn't expect that the Secret Order had obtained this notebook 200 years ago, and that the leader of the Secret Order attached so much importance to it. Zarathu. Isn't this also the surname of the great nobles in the 4th Age? Fortunately, he still remembered where this place was. He put down the diary in his hand, looked at the people from the Tarot Club and said, "Sorry, I was distracted." Shah-Ir and others expressed their understanding with tolerance. Justice, Audrey has begun asking questions about the specific details of the role-playing law. Klein answered through the contents of Rosel's diary, and cleverly hinted that role-playing could help digest the potion. Shah-Ir also heard it and couldn't cover his ears. He also owed the fool a few Russell diaries for the acting method and interpretation of the acting method that he had known for a long time. If he hadn't passed on the acting method he learned from the fool to Hazel to transfer the loss, he would have suffered a loss. You can also use the situation of the Antigonus family as payment. Or the Zeratul family. Klein provided another repayment method at the right time and mentioned an ancient family. Mr. Fool, I can answer this question. Both the Antigonus family and the Zeratul family are very old. Their history can even be traced back to before the Great Cataclysm. They are related to the 2nd, blasphemous tablet. Alger said, "How could there be 2 such precious things as the blasphemous slate? Is there going to be a 3rd piece?" Relying on the secrecy of the gray fog, Klein brainstormed. The 2nd blasphemous tablet. Justice, Audrey asked curiously. Yes, the first blasphemous tablet was created in the Dark Ages, an era when humans were struggling under the protection of the gods. The second blasphemous tablet was created at the end of the Third Age, marking the end of the Cataclysm. The two blasphemous stone tablets are strictly confidential in the Orthodox Church. I only know that they are related to the path of God, but I don't know more. Alger said as he looked towards the angel. Since it is about sharing information, the angel cannot just watch. Both blasphemous tablets are related to the Creator. I heard it's a relic of the Creator. There is no evidence, but the True God Church has strongly denied this speculation, so I think it has a certain degree of credibility. Shah-Ir thought for a moment and said, "How can you be so confident without any evidence?" Klein's mouth twitched. He certainly knew the Creator. It was recorded in the Book of Night that the Creator awoke from chaos, broke the darkness, created the first ray of light, and completely integrated into the universe, becoming the embodiment of all things. A relic of this existence. Not to mention whether this mythical Creator God exists, how could he leave behind relics twice? How precious is this thing? Mr. Angel, what the 7 major churches deny may not be correct. Alger felt that this was a bit far-fetched. Why block the news if it's fake? Shah-Ir sneered. From the moment the comment section was closed, lying had become an art. Because fake news can make some blind people crazy. Alger's version was still too outdated, so he patiently explained it to Shah-Ir. Yeah, it is rumored that humans were born from the wisdom of the Creator. Why don't they tap into their own wisdom to gain strength? Shah-Ir couldn't help laughing. The wisdom of the Creator. That's it. It may be the greed of some gentlemen, combined with the wisdom of curly-haired baboons. Alger also laughed twice. The two men looked at each other and then looked away. Audrey asked curiously, "Which blasphemous slate is Emperor Grossel looking at?" "The second piece. The first piece disappeared long ago." Shah-Ir answered the girl's question. Alger continued, "During the Fourth Era, during the first dynasty of Solomon, the Antigonus family and the Zeratul family were prominent nobles, but not many records were left behind. It was not until the Antigonus family supported the establishment of the Tudor dynasty that their prestige reached its peak. At that time, ancient names such as Antigonus, Ammon, Abraham, Tamara, and Jacob shone in the history of the Fourth Epoch. It was not until the fall of the Blood Emperor that they fell from the peak. The Zeratul family has always been loyal to the Solomon family. After the establishment of the Second Solomon Empire, they were still the great nobles at the time, but there were not many wonderful records left. Compared with other duke families at the time, this family was more low-key. I don't know the details. If Mr. Fool wants to know more, I'm afraid he can only go through the Church of Evernight or those ancient organizations." "What are those?" Klein was a little confused. "How can you say that I should know? I know why the Church of Darkness destroyed the Antigonus family." Shah-Ir's words brought Klein back to his senses. "Because the Church of Night is a church located in the territory of the Truncest dynasty." "Is this reason enough? The Church of Night supports the Night Emperor. The Antigonus family supports the Blood Emperor. That makes sense, but this reason is too." A history graduate fell into deep thought. Klein followed Shah-Ir's train of thought and thought that this was indeed the case. It would be strange if the two different camps had no hatred. The Church of the Night and the Night Emperor. Could it be that the church was the original shareholder of the Trunsost dynasty? It seemed that the church's diocese had been in the present-day Loan territory since the Fourth Era. Is this a new or old grudge between the two dynasties, original shareholders? "I am very satisfied with your compensation." Klein nodded. He planned to go back and review his history course. "It's my pleasure," Alger said modestly. "May the goddess bless you." Shah-Ir casually made a stroke across his chest as a gesture of salute. Brush, brush, brush. 3 pairs of eyes looked over at the same time. Klein broke out in a cold sweat after hearing Shah-Ir's words. "Oh no, my identity as a follower of the goddess has been exposed." Audrey's eyes widened. "Mr. Angel is also a believer of the goddess. You are praising the goddess of night in this kind of situation." Alger couldn't understand. The meaning of angel was a little complicated in his mind. "You don't like it?" Shah-Ir suddenly realized what was going on. He raised his left fist and punched his chest. May the storm shelter you. Mr. Angel, the prayer gesture of the Storm Church is to tap the left chest with the right fist. Alger's eyelids twitched. Mr. Angel, the prayer gesture of the Church of Night is to tap 4 times in a clockwise direction, not to draw a half circle clockwise. Audrey finally reacted and said helplessly. She felt that she was a bit incompetent as a spectator. This was what Mr. Hanged Man said, shouldn't the spectator's subjective emotions affect his objective observation? But I am only blessing you, not praying. Shah-Ir spread his hands. He only prayed for others and not for himself. I was scared to death. Klein looked at the seemingly innocent angel with some anger. This guy has absolutely no faith. He even messes up the prayer gesture. Mr. Angel, this is disrespectful to the goddess. Audrey frowned slightly, not quite approving of this behavior. Can you sing the hymns of the night? Can you recite the entire Apocalypse of Night? Have you ever volunteered at the free night school run by the church? Do you understand what faith is? Shah-Ir asked a few questions in a steady tone, forcing Miss Justice to withdraw from the audience state. Alger looked at the angel in amazement. Is this a person with faith? This shouldn't be the case. Klein reflected on himself. Could it be that he, the Nighthawk, was a fake? But wasn't Angel a little harsh on Miss Justice? Audrey was questioned like this and for a moment she forgot how to refute. As a little princess who had been spoiled since childhood, even though she had seen a lot of things at aristocratic banquets, she was always more gentlemanly and restrained when dealing with entanglements she encountered. You don't understand. It's okay. I don't understand either. Since none of us can do it, let's not laugh at each other, okay? Miss Justice. Shah-Ir stopped in time. As a half-audience member, he did not let Audrey cry out of embarrassment. He stretched out his hand to the Justice beside him as if asking for forgiveness. Miss Justice, who often attends various banquets, instinctively chose the fastest way to resolve the embarrassment. She gently placed her hand on the angel's hand. The angel exchanged a fake kiss, and the two of them apparently reconciled. I'm sorry that I've wasted some of your time because of this dispute over faith. Now that we've reconciled, Miss Justice, don't you still have questions? Shah-Ir nodded apologetically to the fool and the hanged man, then looked at Justice. Klein and Alger also watched in silence. If Miss Justice herself also thought this was a reconciliation, then they had no reason to intervene. They just labeled the angel as unstable in their hearts. For a moment, Alger doubted whether the angel really believed in the Lord of Storms. Was that rational rage just now? This time, the attention of the trio brought a lot of pressure to Audrey. She obviously hadn't recovered from the embarrassment she had just experienced. Shah-Ir tore off a piece of his sleeve, rubbed this part of his spirit into a folding fan, and handed it to Miss Justice beside him. This is just a little trick used to show off one's skills. It is actually of no use. Only spirits can touch it, and it cannot be too far away from Shah-Ir, otherwise it will dissipate. Audrey hesitated for a moment, then took the folding fan and opened it to cover half of her face. Suddenly, her pressure was reduced a lot. I'm sorry, Mr. Angel, I shouldn't have said that about you. She said apologetically to the angel. Although the angel might be more excessive, Audrey instead looked for problems within herself. The audience adjusted their mindset and began to reflect, and Shah-Ir's actions further reduced the hostility. It's okay, Miss Justice, I have some questions too. Shah-Ir himself knew the reason. After he came above the gray fog, his mentality became closer to the natural disaster of the Fourth Age. Seeing the angel's sincere attitude, Audrey curled her lips and continued to ask. Gentlemen, my second question is about the follow-up clues to the audience potion. Let me answer it. After all, it was me who led you down this path. Setting foot on this path means you are far away from your comfort zone. If you want to continue on this path, you will experience some ups and downs. Alger looked at Audrey meaningfully. Audrey, who had re-entered the audience state at this time, realized that the hanged man was referring to the conflict just now. If the angel did not apologize, or just gave a perfunctory response, she actually had no good solution. Even Mr. Fool could not help. After all, the angel did not insult her maliciously. Her psychological quality is actually very poor, especially when facing unexpected cold treatment. Looking back now, it seems that Mr. Angel did not target her. He just did not give her the kind of preferential treatment she always received in the past. Audience sequence 8 is called Mind Reader, and the subsequent sequence 7 is called Psychologist, which was called Psychoanalyst in ancient times. If you want to know the subsequent formula, you can start from an organization called Psychological Alchemy Society. I got the audience formula from a member of the Psychological Alchemist Society, but I have sunk him to the vicinity of Sonia Island. If you want to ask me for clues, I can only say sorry. Alger wanted to use these words to help Miss Justice gain a clearer understanding of the mysterious world. Shen. Audrey did not retreat from the audience this time, but continued to ask. Third question, what would happen if an animal drank a sequence 9 potion? Audrey thought of Susie. Susie was very smart now, and sometimes she was more like a spectator than she was. There is a high probability of immediate death, and a low probability of obtaining corresponding extraordinary abilities. If you are a spectator, it is likely that your observation and thinking abilities will be improved. If you are a sailor, it is likely that your water skills and ability to survive in the sea will be improved. If you are a sleepless person, it is likely that your ability to move around at night will be improved. The remaining spirituality in the potion will enlighten the animals, or in other words, awaken their spirits. If you had heard of the dragon language, you would probably have a clearer understanding of extraordinary creatures. The reason why humans are the mainstream is not because they are more intelligent, but because the gods favor them more. Shah-Ir really doesn't think that in this world, humans are superior to other creatures, at least it cannot be judged completely in this way. Without the help of the fool, Miss Justice might not be as compatible with Susie as an audience. Every demon dog wants to be promoted to sequence 5. So how many Beyonders spend their entire lives stuck in the low sequence? Heaven and earth created all living things, and human beings are just one of them. Far away among the stars, the lizardmen under the Super Star Master have already entered the space-level civilization, right? Shah-Ir did not encounter any rebuttal this time. Perhaps because of what happened just now, the rest of the Tarot Club chose to remain silent. Humans can use magic potions to gain strength that surpasses that of curly-haired baboons, and curly-haired baboons can also use magic potions to gain wisdom that surpasses that of humans. We're all looking up at the stars. Seeing that no one paid attention to him, Shah-Ir finished speaking what he wanted to say. There was silence for a moment. In a trance, Audrey seemed to hear a hint that extraordinary creatures might be smarter than herself. How is this possible? In fact, although most extraordinary creatures are smarter, their living habits are still similar to those of ordinary animals. Alger continued, saying that he had also seen many extraordinary creatures at sea, such as mermen. After all, you can't ask the phoenix not to build a nest, but to build a cave, like humans, which is not conducive to flying. Shah-Ir shrugged. If we had to name the most intelligent being on Earth right now, that dragon wouldn't be a human, right? After a brief chat, Klein the Fool said, I have something that requires your cooperation. Klein activated his clairvoyance and discovered that Mr. Hanged Man was even more nervous, Miss Justice was a little cautious and nervous, and Mr. Angel, his emotions did not change at all. This was actually abnormal, as if they were acting out. Don't worry, it's just a small thing, and it will be good for you. Klein soothed. You go ahead. Audrey turned on the spectator mode and took a look at the fool. She ran into the hidden authority of the gray fog and couldn't see through it. Didn't you call the fool, you, before? Shah-Ir glanced at Miss Justice, who changed her honorifics. Follow your will. Alger suppressed his emotions and said, I have no objection either. Shah-Ir nodded. This attempt is related to the gathering here. If you don't have time on Monday afternoon, you can ask for leave in advance. Klein said with a chuckle. Praise you, Mr. Fool. Shah-Ir raised his hand habitually, then suddenly stopped. What was the gesture of praying to a fool? Retrieve memory. Will the Church of Fools of the future have this thing? Klein and the other two also noticed that Shah-Ir suddenly stopped moving. They all realized what he was struggling with and were speechless. Shah-Ir met the gazes of the three people, tilted his head slightly, and tilted his raised hand to one side. Miss Justice nodded knowingly and naturally handed the folding fan in her hand back to Mr. Angel. Shah-Ir opened his folding fan, fanned it twice in front of his chest, then closed it and looked at Mr. Fool in confusion. Can you continue talking? What are you looking at me for? Klein's mouth twitched, and he continued. You can try a ritual magic. It doesn't have to be too formal. In a closed room, place 4 candles at the 4 corners of the altar. Sandalwood candles are best. Then, place white bread, fenapot noodles, paella, and desi pie on the 4 candles. These are all your favorite foods, right? The more Shah-Ir listened, the more he felt that this sacrificial ceremony was similar to his own. It's just that the offerings he used were all folded by himself. Making essential oils from moonflower, calendula, golden mint, golden orange, rock rose. The Fool continues. What a mixed equation of night plus sun plus earth. Shah-Ir nodded and wrote it down, then turned around and threw the homework to Hazel. What about the spell? Audrey asked with great interest. Fool who does not belong to this era, you're the mysterious master above the gray fog, you're the yellow and black king who controls good luck. Klein tapped the table with his fingertips and spoke in a calm and peaceful Hermetic language. 3-part honorific name. A 3-part honorific name referring to a deity. Equivalent to the 7 deities who look down upon the world. Audrey, who had recently been catching up on some occult knowledge with her friends, was a little surprised. Is Mr. Fool the unknown, powerful, and secret existence that Greyland mentioned? Did you decide to pretend to be a god at this time? Was it because of the fate sign? Or did you not know that the honorific name of a saint is a 5-part name, and thought that honorific names are always 3-part names? Shah-Ir thought silently. If this ritual can really succeed. Is this a he? Alger trembled a little. He was glad that he did not try too hard. Who knew what the thing in front of him was? It might not even be a humanoid creature. Klein took in all of this. He smiled and continued. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this. Fool who does not belong to this era, mysterious ruler above the gray fog, the yellow and black king who controls good luck, I pray for your help, I pray for your favor, deep sleep flower, the herb of the red moon, O golden tangerine, the herb of the sun, please pass your power to my rune. Shah-Ir softly recited the honorific name that the Fool had volunteered to tell him. As he recited, he raised his hand and drew a mystical rune symbolizing, listening, on the open folding fan. The grayish-white mist flowed like water waves, and the folding fan in his hand lit up with a deep red light. Klein, Audrey, and Alger looked at the scene in front of them in confusion. Klein the Fool looked at the angel's actions in confusion. It would be fine if you just recited the spell here, but are you trying to perform a sacrificial ceremony now? You seem to have succeeded. Justice, Audrey and the Hanged Man, Alger also looked at this scene in amazement. Does this ritual really work? This honorific name is actually real. Is Mr. Fool really that great and mysterious being? Audrey and Alger looked at the Fool with fear and admiration, only to find that Mr. Fool was looking at Mr. Angel with great interest, as if he was observing something interesting. They became even more awed. Shah-Ir was not affected by the external environment. In his memory, Klein was able to create dream spells by himself, and by leveraging the power of the gray fog, he could create spells from other realms. Then he should be able to do it too. Create a secret prayer path sequence 8 listeners listening charm. There's no way Grey Mist didn't record the basic abilities of his mortal enemy, right? Shah-Ir closed his eyes and tried to activate the mysterious runes drawn on the folding fan. The folding fan itself was also his spiritual composition. His hearing was greatly improved. He seemed to be able to sense the flow of the gray fog, the noise of the twinkling crimson stars, and the pulsation that seemed real and illusory. Those seemed to be invisible black threads. Bang! Shah-Ir felt as if he was hit on the head by a heavy hammer. His eyes suddenly opened, with a deep red light still in his eyes. His 2 ears were directly taken off and dissolved by the gray mist before falling to the ground. He gasped for breath, his limbs became stiff, his thoughts became intermittent, and the originally invisible and intangible gray fog became heavy. He could not see anything in front of him, but he could feel something pulling at his body, dragging it, penetrating it, and capturing it. Sizzle. Silver arcs of electricity appeared on the surface of Shah-Ir's natal crimson star. He felt like something was cut off, his thoughts were reconnected, his fingers were no longer stiff, his vision returned, and the folding fan that he had held in his hand had disappeared without leaving any dust. "Mr. Angel, are you okay?" "Justice," Audrey asked with a trembling voice. She saw the angel suddenly collapse on the bronze chair, as if he heard some terrible sound and tore off his ears with his own hands. Alger secretly glanced at the fool who had been watching everything silently, and lowered his head unconsciously. Klein the fool felt the gazes of Justice and the hanged man. He was overwhelmed. The only thing he was sure of was that the angel almost exploded, and it was not until the other party tore off his ear that he felt better. At this time, Klein no longer cared that much about the fact that the angel had caused the gray fog to react. He was a little curious about what the other party had just heard that had caused him to become like this. Will this happen if someone tries to mobilize the power of this mysterious space, unless it's me? Mr. Fool was thoughtful. Ahem. Mr. Fool, can you give me some blank papers? Shah-Ir covered his chest and uttered a few words with difficulty. He seemed not to hear Audrey's question. When Klein heard the angel's weak words, he also wanted to see what the other party wanted to do, so he summoned 3 pieces of white paper and considerately jumped them into the angel's hands. Shah-Ir quickly folded the 2 pieces of white paper in his hand into 2 things that looked like ears, and put them on his ears. He crumpled the last piece of white paper into a ball and swallowed it. His complexion recovered a little, and he stood up, bowed slightly to the fool and said, "Thank you for your gift. This ability is very useful." The fool, who witnessed all of this, had 3 big question marks above his head. How did it become a gift? What does it mean? He didn't know what to say, so he could only nod slightly. "Mr. Angel, are you okay?" Justice, Audrey was also very surprised. She was afraid that the angel couldn't hear her like before, so she spoke loudly on purpose. Alger, the hanged man, was somewhat surprised. "Is this a gift? What kind of gift?" "It's nothing serious, I just need to rest for a while. Mr. Fool has gifted me with a very useful spell-like ability. Also, I don't recommend you try to use ritual magic here like I just did. This is very dangerous. You may not have the ability or experience to stop the ceremony in time, and your method may not be appropriate." Shah-Ir patted his chest with some fear as he spoke. "This gray fog space is too much. Where is the fuse mechanism? Why does Klein have it? He doesn't have it. What is this? He can use it, but he doesn't care if he dies. Fortunately, he used the power of natural disasters to cut off the internet in time, otherwise his CPU would have burned out. Spell-like ability. What's this?" When Audrey saw that the angel was fine, her curiosity overcame her fear. If the angel hadn't looked so scary just now, she would have wanted to ask Mr. Fool to give her one as well. "You can simply understand it as drawing paper as a soldier." Shah-Ir simply gave it a name. "Little gray fog, do you still want to torture him for nothing? See if I'm going to pull you out. After being tossed around by the gray fog for a while, you will have the courage to touch a little bit of the chaos sea. Do you think we can't see?" Klein looked at Shah-Ir's nonsense and didn't know what to say. "Turn paper into soldiers. Then why do you fold 2 ears and wear them? You ate a piece of paper. You dare to eat something that is made out of thin air, and I don't even know how it works." Klein looked at Shah-Ir as if he were a white mouse. "That's amazing." Although Audrey also felt that the ability obtained by the angel was not that simple. She was tactful and did not ask. Just using paper as soldiers is already amazing. Of course, this is the benefit of holding the ceremony first. Sha'ir also called GG decline. Turning paper into something useful, this ability is quite applicable. In fact, this was something he realized on his own. A slight manifestation of the lowest level of ability that belongs to the power of change. If you change the listener, you probably need to be hurt more seriously before you can gain anything. As for why harm is a blessing, isn't this normal for people who pray in secret? Has the Lord hurt you? No, this is the love of the Lord. Your awareness is not enough. Why have I realized it, but you haven't? Can't you discover the Lord's profound meaning? The smile on Sha'ir's face grew wider. The experiment was a success. Even if you become a listener and come above the gray fog, nothing will happen. Even if you actively use your extraordinary ability to listen, as long as you don't feel it carefully, it is basically controllable at the first layer of gray fog, and can also be used to identify pollution. The more you listen on the gray fog, the more you will be tempered. Even if you come into contact with a little bit of the chaos, see or hear the voice of the real creator, it will be difficult to pollute yourself. Mr. Angel, why did you eat that paper? Alger considered it for a moment and asked a less sensitive question. Didn't Mr. Fool explain the acting method to you? When I perform ritual magic here, this space will regard me as a liar who wants to sneak in to eat and drink for free, and the guards here will expel me. But if the owner sees that the swindler is a traveler he has met once and feels pity for him and sends him an invitation, the guards will put away their weapons and stop expelling and attacking the guest. Isn't that right, Mr. Fool? Sha'ir looked at Mr. Fool, who was calm and in control of the overall situation, with a smile. Sha'ir had to thank the powerful secret authority of the gray fog space. Even if he tried to listen with the power of the gray fog, he could not break through the secrecy of this space and would not hear the truly terrifying voice. Only the noise of the tip of the iceberg can be heard. Are those blank papers a sign from Mr. Fool? Alger, the hanged man, suddenly realized what was going on and secretly lamented how slow he had become. This is Mr. Fool's territory. The angel is trying the sacrifice ritual according to Mr. Fool's request. Although the angel is somewhat tentative, Mr. Fool will not let the angel die like this. Although the angel has suffered a little, Mr. Fool has also blessed him with a powerful ability. The angel did not lose his mind. Seeing how powerful Mr. Fool was, and realizing his own recklessness, he quickly and tactfully asked Mr. Fool for forgiveness. After Mr. Fool was satisfied, he helped the angel solve his own problem. The piece of paper that the angel ate was his token of allegiance. After Alger figured it out, he looked at the angel with complicated eyes. Who knows if that piece of paper is some kind of control method? Paying such a huge price only to gain a spell-like ability. Big loss. Can I use more Grossel diaries to exchange for a spell ability in the future? It would be nice if it didn't hurt. Justice, Audrey was thinking about how to get Mr. Fool to give her a painless gift. Is that forgiveness? Klein the Fool realized it belatedly. If you think about it this way, is he playing the role of the host here and forgiving the impolite guest? He was not hurt because this space treated him as its master. Acting method. But what about the spell-like abilities that angels gain? His path is very good at ritual magic. The angel had deliberately closed his eyes before, and was there a red light when his eyes opened? A secret peeper. Because he was afraid to see, he closed his eyes to peeping secrets. Then, through ritual magic, he obtained a seemingly complicated spell-like ability from the gray fog space. Klein felt a little jealous. He also wanted to wait until everyone left, so he could hold it too. What is the mysterious symbol that the angel painted on the folding fan? You are a very generous gentleman. Sha'ir praised the Fool again. This is the reward you deserve. Mr. Fool forced a smile. Then we entered the Tarot Club's casual chat session. Audrey spoke first. Mr. Fool, The civil service examination system you proposed last time has received support from many members of parliament. Perhaps it is really possible to implement it. However, given the actual efficiency of the kingdom, it will take at least half a year to implement it. Audrey said this with some pride. She had perfectly guided everything behind the scenes, watching those ladies showing off proudly. I hope so. Alger smiled and continued. In recent decades, the activities of various secret organizations have become more and more frequent, and even several new secret organizations of a certain scale have emerged. He looked at the angel as he spoke. Although he expected Mr. Fool to answer this question, Mr. Fool might not be willing to do so. I can answer this question for you. Because the day when the stars return to their proper positions is approaching. We will have the honor of witnessing the fall of a god. Shah-Ir said in a brisk tone. Klein's eyelids twitched. What is this day when the stars return to their proper positions? Is this what he was thinking of? Is the mother planet going to send a large army of travelers to open up the wasteland? If so, it seems not bad. Klein smiled, somewhat sadly. Alger frowned, instinctively feeling that the angel was talking nonsense, but he also felt that there was no need for it. Wait. Why didn't Mr. Fool refute it? Alger discovered the blind spot and was terrified when he thought about it, breaking out in a cold sweat. Mr. Angel, are you kidding me? Audrey, Justice, didn't quite understand how the words, God, and, fall, could be connected together. Is it possible that the sun in the sky will fall? Have you heard of the legendary ancestor of the Blood Clan? That was once a god. The Blood Clan's god fell, so the Blood Clan came to an end. There are still many ancient beings that have disappeared in history. Perhaps the ancient power is awakening. Shah-Ir said what the other two did not dare to say. Ancient power. Audrey glanced at Mr. Fool and hesitated to speak. Alger felt that the angel was a bit desperate. Was this the calmness he felt after paying his respects? We are all witnesses to history. Klein the Fool tapped the table with his fingers. He also had a basis for his existence, the notes from the Fourth Era being an example. The words of the angel reveal a lot of information. Blood races vampires. Vampires used to have their own gods. But they fell. This may have been done by the 7 gods who protected humanity from the cataclysm. Those ancient beings that fell did not fall completely. How did the angel know? Sometimes he looked like a noble, sometimes like a false believer, sometimes like an ambitious person, sometimes like a young man, sometimes like a senior Beander who knew a lot, and sometimes like a reckless madman. Klein didn't know what kind of identity the angel had in reality that gave people such a complicated feeling, but he was sure that the angel was definitely not an official Beander. At least he's not a Beander related to the Church of Evernight. The extraordinary people of the church would never talk about these taboo topics. This tarot club ends here. The Fourth Age. Shah-Ir folded a square of TNT out of paper and threw it on the water. Bang! The explosion sent up a high splash of water. After Shah-Ir wiped away the explosion with his hand, he said a little disappointedly, who would carry so much paper when going out? This lacks a matching secret technique. He referred to the idea of turning paper into usefulness and reversely developed the secret technique of turning usefulness into paper. Shah-Ir curled his fingers slightly, and drops of water transformed into white paper surrounding the sea, and as they approached, they turned into flying swords. Am I sick? He looked at his own operation in silence for a moment. This time, the sea water directly turned into water swords and rose into the air. The Lord of Heaven is just a magician. Shah-Ir should have thought of it earlier. It was Tianzun who took other people's things. It would be strange if, listening, could take Grey Mist's things. If you don't intervene and continue to listen, you may be able to learn how to control the spirit thread, but you will also have to pay something. If I continue like this, I might be destroyed and even the Crimson Moon Corona won't be able to save me. Shah-Ir folded a small, magic mirror, and said, I was also contaminated by the grey fog just now. Now tell me the honorific name of the fantasy dragon. He wasn't snooping into the gray fog space for no reason. He just wanted to tease the gray fog to make himself feel safer before touching the things of all 5 families. That dead guy Tianzun is still very reliable. Rhodes sent over a prayer spell. After Shah-Ir made some simple modifications to make the direction more accurate, he slowly recited. The ancient king of the dragon clan, the ruler of the world of mind and dreams, the fallen dragon king of the kingdom of fantasy. Ancient king of the dragon clan, you are the ruler of the world of mind and dreams, you are the fallen dragon king of the kingdom of fantasy. I beg for your help. I pray for your favor. I pray that you will guide me to the gate that leads to the city of miracles. Shah-Ir tried it with a non-mystical language and felt that the effect was good, so he began to prepare for the formal prayer ceremony. He had already made Rhodes try hard before. But the whereabouts of Grossel's travels could not be found. This book was of a very high status, and seemed to have psychological invisibility, a quality that could reduce one's sense of existence. Even when Rhodes searched through the spirit world, he could not find it. The magic mirror's search ability always inadvertently ignores the existence of this book. Shah-Ir could only continue to wait, but fortunately, he thought of a better solution. A strong fortress is often breached from within. Grossel's Travels is about the miracle city of the divine kingdom that sealed the fantasy dragon. Inside the miracle city, the fantasy dragon was still a personality that was polluted by the chaos sea during the ancient god period. After the death of the dragon of imagination, Angerweed, the arrangements he left in the city of miracles continued to be in effect until the 5th era. It is hard to say that this has nothing to do with the negative personality of the dragon of imagination that was contaminated by the sea of chaos. Since this negative personality may have the ability to influence Grossel's travels. If you want to find this book, you can just pray to this negative personality. The negative personality of the fantasy dragon, who knows what he says, may be able to hear you. Even if it is sealed, prayer may not be ineffective. If the signal is not good, there is still the breath of the chaos sea, to serve as a matchmaker. Shah-Ir, why do you have to find this book? Rhodes was a little confused. Because according to logic, this book was made by the imagination dragon. If I get this book, I will have a chance to obtain the extraordinary characteristics that the nightmare dragon, Alisuhad, left behind after his death. This is in line with the law of aggregation of extraordinary properties. Shah-Ir said as he was busy. If he didn't use some skills, these 2 things would be really hard to find. Not to mention that Rhodes couldn't find them. Didn't the quasi-ancient sun god also fail to find them in the glorious era of the 3rd age after such a long time? It could be dangerous, Rhodes reminded. But it's exciting, isn't it? We have already met in the distant future, and now is far from the end. Shah-Ir took out some extraordinary materials obtained from the elves' treasure house. Sure, we can come up with a safer way. Rhodes obviously still didn't agree. Okay, Rhodes, no more jokes. I got the information. The book contains a crazy personality of the fantasy dragon that was contaminated by the underground. It is a negative personality that may not have extraordinary characteristics and is sealed up. How can it hurt me, a half-angel, with just a prayer? Even though it may spread the pollution from underground, with you here, your power can ensure the safety of the ritual. Shah-Ir was not worried at all. Klein in the original time and space was fine when he walked into the city of miracles, so how could he run into problems when he held a ceremony at an unknown distance? Moreover, he had eaten a little bit of Grey Mist's creation at the previous tarot meeting. This can bring some psychological comfort. Shah-Ir did not use all the materials from the elf treasury, he also collected some extraordinary materials of his own. He had eaten the entire brain of an old psychic dragon, but the rest of its body material was still preserved. The corpse of a demigod-level psychic dragon is already a very precious extraordinary material. There is no material for the fantasy dragon's body in the elf treasury. If there is, it would have been eaten by the elf king long ago. Only this ancient god is qualified to make the fantasy dragon bleed. There is still some blood of the descendants of the fantasy dragon at the north level. Although the blood of the descendants is not as pure as the blood of the gods, it does come from the direct descendants of the dragon of imagination. As an auxiliary material for ritual magic, it is also of high standards. Shah-Ir waved his hand, and as half a natural disaster, he easily built a closed spiritual environment. According to the orthodox ritual process, 3 candles are placed, the ritual materials are made into corresponding essential oils, dripped on the candles, the spirituality in the materials is completely evaporated, and then the spell is chanted in the most standard dragon language. Ancient king of the dragon clan, you are the ruler of the world of mind and dreams, you are the fallen dragon king of the kingdom of fantasy. After Shah-Ir calmed down, he performed a sacrificial ceremony. He didn't know whether he would get a response, or whether the resonance in his spiritual world would be able to create ripples big enough. What he wanted was actually very simple, which was to establish a little mystical connection between himself and the things left behind by the imagination dragon. Only then does it make sense to continue searching. Otherwise, do we have to rely on illusory luck? The golden divine blood began to evaporate, and the silent waiting made people feel irritable and depressed. Mysterious runes that did not belong to the real world began to overlap and extend in the void, making people start to have all kinds of thoughts and traces just by seeing them. Sure, be careful. The surface of the magic mirror in Shah-Ir's hand lit up with eye-catching lightning as a warning. The vortex-shaped twisted hole only appeared for a moment, and it already showed signs of breaking. The spiritually constructed passage looked extremely unstable, and a crazy dragon roar came from it. Woo! Shah-Ir's spirit felt a strong threat, and the still air around him seemed to come alive. The wind howled, causing a terrifying sonic boom that exploded in the void, submerging the emerging runes and also blowing up the altar that was still providing spirituality. The void twisted, as if something was twisting at the junction of dream and reality. Invisible pollution began to spread. Shah-Ir held a rhodes, the magic mirror lit up, and the terrifying mental power directly blocked the connection and destroyed the mystical connection. The crazy dragon roar also became intermittent in the violent wind. Shah-Ir stretched out his hand, and the whirlwind that destroyed the altar and the mysterious power began to swirl. He snapped his fingers and transformed into paper. These whirlwinds tainted with unknown power turned into pieces of paper with mysterious runes imprinted on them, overlapping each other. There are some complicated mysterious symbols and patterns on each page. Just one look at it makes me feel like I'm about to have a splitting headache. There are also some dark black dirt on some of the papers, as if they were stained by ink that had been spilled. Shah-Ir created a book cover made purely of lightning to bind and seal the overlapping pages together. The power of erodes was also mixed in, together creating a layer of isolation. Among the remaining spiritual materials in the field, 2 pieces of yellowish-brown dragon skin were cut off. The skin of the demigod dragon covered it, and the power of the scourge acted on the seal, and the light of the lightning gradually faded. Boom! Shah-Ir, who was sore all over and with his hair hanging out, was dragged by Gao Shinam and thrown into the bathtub. Gao Shinam's psychological treatment was very effective. After a session of electrotherapy, Shah-Ir was cured of the madness caused by the dragon's roar. As a former mortal enemy, the elf queen was quite experienced in treating the dragon's mental breath. What did you do this time? I actually felt a little bit of Angerweed's aura. The elf queen looked at Shah-Ir in confusion. If Stormpath was not bad at divination, she would have suspected that Shah-Ir used the divine blood of the descendant of the dragon of imagination taken from the elf treasury to divine the ancient god who controls the spiritual realm. I tried a ritual magic. Shah-Ir recovered quite quickly. He soaked in the water, stretching his sore arms and speaking. You prayed to Angleweed. Gao Shinam frowned slightly. How could a normal elf pray to the dragon of imagination, especially since the other party had already fallen? Yes, it seems that this ancient god has not completely fallen. At least he left behind something interesting. Shah-Ir was well prepared. Use something that has been tainted by the aura of the Chaos Sea to strengthen the connection between him and the negative personality of the fantasy dragon. The aura of the Chaos Sea may also strengthen the signal, making the communication across servers clearer. The most suitable one he could think of was the natural disaster characteristics in his body, which came from an angel who died after being polluted by the Chaos Sea. This resemblance, together with the honorific name, is sufficient. What did you find? The elf queen sat by the pool, tapping the clear water with her bare feet. Slight ripples flowed over her pearly ankles. A faint light wrapped around her fingertips, controlling the flow of water, and raised her eyes to ask. Maybe a virtual personality. A virtual personality that is in bad condition, crazy, and possibly contaminated. Sha'ir did not hide this matter from the elf queen. You want to find the extraordinary characteristics of the nightmare dragon. Goshinam guessed Shale's purpose. Yes, are you interested too? Sha'ir swam to the edge of the pool where Goshinam was sitting and asked. Goshinam nodded. There is nothing to be shy about. I agree with the division of labor between you going out to look for it and me lying at home. But the cost-effectiveness of getting it is relatively low, and the possibility is not very high, so I still have to find it. Sha'ir also thought about lying down, but he didn't have the capital to do so. Like that ancient sun god, are you also connected to the underground? Goshinam asked while looking at Sha'ir, who was soaking in the water with his eyes closed. When he didn't mind using the characteristics left by the elf god who died from underground pollution, Goshinam had a vague guess. Although there shouldn't be much contamination left in the extraordinary characteristics, ordinary people would definitely choose to avoid it. I'm afraid there's not such a deep connection. But, as a remnant of the old days, I am much more resistant to pollution than you are. The difficult part is never establishing contact with the underground. Sha'ir is still somewhat confident in this regard. He remembered an ancient dragon named Edifaner, who was polluted by the Chaos Sea and lived until the 5th era. As a time traveler and a remnant of the old days, is his resistance to pollution not as good as that of a dragon? Jumping into the Chaos Sea would definitely lead to death, but could being contaminated by just a little bit of its aura lead to sudden death? The elf queen might only be able to become a sequence 1, but he could become the angel king among angel kings. Did I affect your rhythm? Goshinam thought about his previous urging. Sha'ir has grown a lot now, and there is no need for her to say anything more. Probably not. This ritual is actually not that dangerous. Under normal circumstances, those below the level of angels will die if they come into contact with pollution. They cannot withstand this power. Angels, because of their high level, will experience unimaginable horrific changes if they come into contact with pollution. Only true gods are slightly better. I am now half saint and half angel. I can withstand the power that saints cannot bear, but I cannot clearly sense the terror that angels feel. Moreover, I have only come into contact with a polluted personality, not the source of pollution itself. Even if we are facing the breath of the dragon's mind, isn't there a master of the mind realm here? Sha'ir opened his eyes and supported his chin. He didn't understand why Kazanamu and Erodes thought he was reckless. He himself knew very well that he was actually extremely stable. Although the high status of the Traverser is similar to Klein above the gray fog, the status is false. But something empty is better than nothing. Can the sequence 2 that falls from sequence 0 be the same as the ordinary sequence 2? You remind me of Sonia Solem. Many of his decisions, in hindsight, were correct. Goshinam's eyes were also a little absent-minded, obviously recalling some past times. Do you admit it? You are not as powerful as the Elf King, nor are you as wise as the Elf King. Although you are calmer than him, and he is more impatient than you, his understanding of the world and his judgment of the situation are far superior to yours. He is faster than you think and more correct than you. Sha'ir suddenly perked up. He turned around, looked into the eyes of the elf queen and spoke with interest. I am indeed not as good as the king. Goshinam did not shy away from the question. The elf king thought about joining forces with the illusion dragon and putting the threat of the giant king before that of the illusion dragon. This is one of the manifestations of his wisdom. It's just a pity that the ancient gods find it even more difficult to resist the attraction of the characteristics of adjacent pathways. The Elf King and the Dragon of Fantasy could not separate and get together like the three gods Feng, Ji and Bai in later generations. Whenever we join forces, You are very self-aware. Shah-Ir lay down again. This woman actually didn't argue with him, how boring. I have never been a decision maker. I am only the king's assistant. Dealing with some troubles he has no patience for. You can make the decision to seal most of the elves. Let them be the ones who provide faith in the dream. I can't make such a decision. Gauss Sheenam looked at Shah-Ir, who was lazily enjoying the hot spring, and said with a complicated expression. Even though she was the queen of elves, she had never thought about such things. This is not a lingering survival, it is almost a slow death. God has the right to determine the direction of his own civilization and race. Since God is also God, 2-1, the god of luck and I agree, so let's happily decide. The god of luck and the queen of scourge, two versatile angels, joined forces to seal up most of the surviving land elves and sea elves, turning them into a tool that only provides faith. The good thing is that this part of the faith does not decrease or waver, and the god of luck can restart many times when encountering danger, get rid of the danger, and wash away the madness. The downside is that the lifespan of elves is limited, so it is impossible to raise them like livestock. This is like exchanging the future for the present. You are my choice, of course I will support you. And this actually makes me feel a lot more relaxed. Gauss Sheenam leaned on Shah-Ir and felt a sense of relaxation. In fact, the current elf community is a burden to the elf queen. If there is a lack of faith, Gauss Sheenam can secretly shelter some hunted sea creatures, or hide his identity and secretly control a remote area to meet the needs. Even if believers are in danger, she can calmly ignore it, deal with it if necessary, and move them to another place if necessary. The most flexible approach is for the audience to be able to split themselves up and the main body does not go on stage. But the elves couldn't do that. She couldn't just ignore them. She also wants these fellow tribesmen to live as well as possible. Did the elf king leave anything behind? Other ancient gods have a way to revive themselves, doesn't the elf king have one? Shah-Ir changed the subject. Although the card of Storm Blasphemy clearly states that the tyrant does not have the ability to resurrect from the dead and return from the void, the Elf King is an ancient god of the mixed path, not an ordinary tyrant. He left a plan for resurrection, but it was destroyed. There was some hatred in Kahinam's voice. Ancient sun god. Shah-Ir could only think of this person. And the giant king, Almir. Oh, I really want to know if he ever regretted it when he was beaten to the brink of death by the ancient sun god. There was undisguised mockery in Gauss Sheenam's eyes. The giant king. Perhaps his only remaining affection was given to his family. Shah-Ir didn't know how to evaluate the giant king. This ancient god who accidentally killed his biological parents passed on power to the next generation at the end of his life. To some extent, he had completed his mission. It is possible for the god of war to explode and kill his own father, but it is a bit difficult. A seriously injured ancient god is still an ancient god. If he wants to commit fraud, he should at least be an angel king. Whatever the truth is, it is probably true that the giant king did not launch a death counterattack against his eldest son. Lilith was able to take away 2 ancient gods before she died. She herself is not dead yet. Except for Fabuti, who sealed himself in the abyss, all the other 8 ancient gods have perished. Gauss Sheenam told Shah-Ir that history, the glorious history of the omniscient and omnipotent. Hey, that's God's own son. It's normal that we can't beat him. There's only one person as outrageous as him, and there won't be another one in the future. Shah-Ir had nothing to say about this cheater who started out as a true god with 2 paths. Oh, so you are God's second son. Gauss Sheenam teased, imitating Shah-Ir's tone. Such conversations had taken place many times before, and Gauss Sheenam naturally understood what the original god meant. As a human being, how could Shah-Ir be unwilling to communicate? He seemed like an outsider compared to the other survivors of the old days, each one lonelier than the other. Huh, you want me to recognize the thief as my father? I am a die-hard Tianzun party member. What decent audience would rush to be God's son? Shah-Ir didn't expect that the title of Master Hong would fall on his head, and he quickly shook his head. Do you want me and Lucky to help you find it? Goshinam asked with a smile. She clearly gave up the idea of competing with Shah-Ir. She was unable to maximize the use of resources. Unnecessary. The things left by the fantasy dragon are very spiritual. If you help, it will be harder to find them. Shah-Ir planned to try to find it himself. If he couldn't find it, it wouldn't be a bad thing. If it went too smoothly, he might feel uneasy. He felt uneasy and was going to die on Saphira Castle, begging the Lord of Heaven to help suppress the inherently evil original god. The Fifth Era. Street. Samuel's Cathedral, toilet for clergy. Shah-Ir opened his eyes on the toilet. He took out a tissue from the side and wiped the blood from his ears. He now realized a problem. Attending a tarot club in St. Samuel's Cathedral, isn't this a bit too arrogant? Are you afraid that the goddess of night doesn't know? Forget it, it's all Klein's fault. The party had to be scheduled on Monday. Who doesn't have to work on Monday? Shah-Ir rubbed his numb ears. He wondered how he would tactfully tell Senior Grey that he wanted to take a leave. Evening, 10 o'clock. Shah-Ir, wearing a black tuxedo and dark red cape of the Wrath of the Soul, came to the East District, the new headquarters of the Hilly Party. The business here is even busier than during the day. Even on the third floor, you can vaguely hear the noise downstairs. As a headquarters, there is certainly no such business here. The first floor is a bar, and some gambling games such as dog catching rat were held there. When Shah-Ir came over, the zombie, Jason, was here. It was obvious that he had received the message from Shah-Ir in advance. My lord, the Crimson Moon crown is inside. Jason the zombie held up a wooden box. Shah-Ir waved his hand, and the wooden box flew into his hand. Jason said, you go down. Zombie, Jason nodded, and he left the room with the zombies he controlled and closed the door. Shah-Ir constructed a closed spiritual environment in the room, then opened the wooden box and released the spiritual blockade. The Crimson Moon corona was quietly placed inside. The room was like a full moon, and the surrounding walls were dyed crimson. He took out the Crimson Moon crown and took off his ears. After taking them off, the two ears turned into two pieces of crumpled paper and soon turned into gray mist and dissipated. This time, I actually heard a spirit. If it weren't for his ability to transform paper into something useful and pinch out two fake ears to temporarily use his real ears, Shah-Ir might have to spend the day reading lips. He had not failed to anticipate the possibility of getting hurt, so he threw the Crimson Moon corona lightly in his hand, and the spirit body contained it. His eyes turned red, as beautiful as rubies, his spirit's hair began to grow, and his face became more feminine and handsome. Red scales began to appear around Shah-Ir, they were like a broken moon, and spiritual power began to grow, repairing the wounds of the spirit body at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his ears grew back. Let's go out and have some fun. Being surrounded by abundant spirituality, Shah-Ir became a little restless. His figure faded and merged into the void. He jumped through the mirror and shuttled through various places under the night sky, consuming the spirituality that was beginning to become excessive and moving among the moonlight. In a certain apartment, Furs woke up from her sweet dream, and heard painful mumblings in her ears again. She subconsciously glanced out the window, and the crimson moonlight poured in through the gaps in the curtains. Wasn't it just a short time since the last full moon? Furs gritted her teeth as she curled up in the quilt. When she was ready to endure the pain, the crimson moonlight dimmed and the voice in her ears gradually disappeared. What are you doing? Isn't this too fast? Miss Shanyu, who had been lying flat, climbed out of the quilt, her brown curly hair spread over her light yellow pajamas, and she looked at the scattered blush in a daze. Is this the end? She doesn't feel anything yet. Shah-Ir, who was experiencing the extraordinary power of the moon path, shuddered. Can spirits also catch colds? Or is this some kind of spiritual premonition? Sure enough, wandering around at night can easily lead to problems. He looked down at the buildings below, and the black mist turned into wings and flew back in the direction he came from. Furs was awakened from her dream again after lying down again. She scratched her hair irritably and said, I should have known that I wouldn't be so easy on myself. Furs complained, turned over, and got into position, ready to continue facing the pain. The moonlight swept past, and she held her head and waited for a long time, but she didn't feel anything. This time, Furs was so angry that she threw the pillow away. There was a thumping sound of footsteps. Zio, with dark circles under her eyes, pushed open the door and looked at her best friend who was having a seizure. She said speechlessly, "What are you yelling about so late at night? I thought you saw a ghost." I had a bad dream." Furs smiled awkwardly. "I see. I think even if there really is a ghost, it was scared away by your scream just now." Zio picked up the pillow on the ground and threw it at Furs, venting his anger at being disturbed in his sleep. Then he closed the door and went back to his room to sleep. Boom. Furs was hit by a pillow and felt a little aggrieved. She hugged the pillow again, choosing to believe that it was just an accident. After waiting for a few minutes and confirming that there was nothing unusual, she could no longer hold on and slowly fell asleep. After returning to the Hilly Party headquarters, Sha'ir put the Crimson Moon crown away again and threw it to the zombie Jason. Through the experiment just now, we learned that this level 2 seal has a terrifying effect on increasing the combat power of dark creatures. A Sequence 5 Wraith wearing a Crimson Moon crown would have no problem being a pirate admiral at sea. Even if it encountered a pirate king, it would have a great chance of escaping. "Jason, how is the consolidation of the Hilly Party's territory going?" The werewolf Tyr was not here, he was watching the place somewhere else. Sha'ir looked at the zombie Jason and asked, "Sir, we have taken over several streets controlled by the Hilly Party. Other gangs wanted to take advantage of our internal chaos to come and cause trouble, but we beat them back." "Zombie," Jason said, looking at Sha'ir who looked a little gloomy. He asked tentatively, "Sir, do you need fresh blood?" The side effect of the Crimson Moon Corona is that it will make the wearer's blood cold. The wearer must either stop the condition in time or drink the blood of a living person to relieve the symptoms. "Then I might as well just suck the soul." Sha'ir stretched out his hand, his palm became dark, and shadows of the undead emerged. These dead souls were absorbed by him and fed to the resentful souls sealed in the mirror to replenish their energy. In the East District, there are dead and wandering spirits everywhere. There is no way to survive in the human world, and no door to the underworld to die. You can make use of the people on these streets. As I said, you can open an intermediary company and let these people provide services for us. You can help the exiles from the southern continent and let them work in the places where we need them. We must also make use of our channels at sea and the resources in the southern continent. If we can control the livelihoods of these people, they will believe in us. Just take care of the connection with the school. For other matters, you can find some subordinates. The remaining gang members are very suitable. I also found a temporary consultant for you, Hugh Dilcha, a well-known underground arbitrator in the East District. Have you heard of this name? Sha'ir leaned back in his chair and said a name. Arbitrator. Zombie Jason is very sensitive to this word. The extraordinary path mastered by the Loan royal family and the Fainapotter royal family is the arbitrator path. It's not like they haven't dealt with extraordinary people from the arbitrator path in the southern continent before. In a Loan base like Backland, such an arbitrator is likely to mean MI9. Are you scared? Sha'ir looked at Jason and asked. My lord, that is not what I meant. The zombie Jason lowered his head and said quickly. That arbitrator is not from MI9, at least not yet. If she continues to improve her sequence, she may be absorbed by MI9 as an intelligence officer, but this may not be a bad thing for us. I've said before that our business needs to start transforming. You may not have the patience to deal with some internal disputes. Although violence can solve many problems, we still need to abide by the rules when doing business. You can entrust Miss Hugh Dilcha with tasks that you are unwilling to do, not good at doing, or that do not suit your taste, such as the transformation and treatment of prostitutes. I think an enthusiastic, kind, and upright female arbitrator will help you put together a suitable plan. If Sha'ir remembered correctly, Zio had not yet become successful at that time, and the price she asked for the commission was relatively low. In this case, the issue of improving the treatment of women should be left to women. It's just right, let Zio come and watch the development of the Hilly party. The zombie Jason lowered his head and fell into thought. He heard several meanings from the boss's words. The boss might want to train an arbitrator who could have contact with MI9. The boss wants to let this arbitrator participate in the affairs of the Hilly party. The boss wants to disperse the people they can control through the Hilly party and make use of the resources of the southern continent. I am specifically responsible for the connection with the school, and the lower levels of the gang are responsible for doing things. I entrust this arbitrator to improve the various systems within the gang. This is to establish a base right under the nose of MI9. When necessary, the power of MI9 can also be used in reverse. Sir, I know what to do. I will send someone to contact the arbitrator. There are also members of the Hilly party who know the arbitrator. I will arrange for a local backland believer in indulgence controlled by our Rose School to be the leader of the Hilly party. He will deal with these low-end people and handle various matters. I will also remind Tyr not to easily expose the werewolf's extraordinary abilities in front of the arbitrator. Jason nodded after he understood. I'm glad you understand. After Shah-Ir finished his instructions, his figure faded and disappeared. Although his original intention was just to let Misjudgment supervise the development of the Hilly party. But if the zombie Jason understood that he wanted to sabotage MI9, it would not be a bad idea. Tuesday, July 10th. Shah-Ir came to St. Samuel's Church to punch in for work. He carried a pile of documents sorted out by Senior Gray to the archives room. When I returned to the office, I met Bishop Electra again. Monsieur Bishop. Shah-Ir drew a crimson moon on his chest. Sit down. You can read this telegram. Bishop Electra handed Shale a telegram. Shah-Ir glanced at the date. It was a telegram from last Saturday, sent by the Tingan Night Squad, a report on the preliminary confirmation of the whereabouts of the Antigonus family's notes. Notes from the Fourth Age. I remember Senior Allison was quite curious. Shah-Ir probably guessed why the bishop was looking for him. I'm very curious, but unfortunately I can't leave. Allison Gray said with some regret. She needed to stay in St. Samuel Cathedral to provide intelligence support to the Nighthawks team in the suburbs of Backland. On the contrary, Shah-Ir had nothing to do except helping Allison and looking up some documents. The Church of Darkness couldn't expect a secret praying person to do any substantive work, right? You want me to go? Shah-Ir looked at the bishop in surprise. He is a secretive person. How dare you arrange a business trip for a secretive person? What do you think of the true creator? Bishop Electra asked. Degenerate. Shah-Ir blurted out. You're normal. The bishop patted Shah-Ir on the shoulder. What's the best way to detect a fanatic? Just tell them that their God is Lasay. Which fanatic can endure such an insult? The Lord can endure it, but believers cannot. What do I need to do? If I have enough time, I can visit my father on behalf of my mother. Shah-Ir did not make any excuses. After coming back this time, he would find an opportunity to apply for promotion to listener. Apply for promotion openly. Haha, you're just going along this time to broaden your horizons. It is mainly the 3 experienced night watchmen who are in charge and are heading to Tingan with sealed artifact 2049. Bishop Electra also wanted to show Shah-Ir how the Nighthawks performed their daily tasks. Shah-Ir has been examined and found not to be contaminated by the true creator. For this operation, the Backland Diocese sent out a team of Nighthawks, and the Tingan Diocese sent out a team of Nighthawks. With so many people working together, they can even deal with a Sequence 5. It won't be dangerous for Shah-Ir to go along and see for himself. The secret prayer man's ability may be able to provide some help. Let's take a look. Senior Gray handed Shah-Ir a report, which introduced the sealed artifact 2049 and the plan for this mission. Sealed Object 2049, the puppet of the Antigonus family, is very sensitive to members or objects of the Antigonus family and can provide guidance. Mission objective: bring back the Antigonus family's notes. After reading it, Shah-Ir looked at the two of them in confusion and asked, Why isn't there a description of what to do with real Bieber? This is your freedom. If real Bieber is highly dangerous, you can kill him directly. The bishop was stunned for a moment, then he put away the gentle expression on his face and spoke seriously. If this gentleman can be controlled, we can capture him and make him join the church. Shah-Ir asked again. This time, both Senior Grey and Mr. Bishop fell silent. They looked at each other, and Senior Grey asked, "Why do you think so? Is there any problem?" Even if Mr. Bieber is really a descendant of the Antigonus family, he was obviously forced into this incident. If we don't invite him to join the church, do we have to kill him? Shah-Ir looked at the two of them in confusion and asked, who is on the good and lawful camp? The Antigonus family was destroyed by the church. Allison Gray explained for Shah-Ir. Then what? Shah-Ir continued to ask. This gentleman may not want to join us. Grace Senpei said politely. No, he thought, being able to believe in the goddess is an honor that none of his ancestors had ever had. His identity means he can only serve the church. He can either live and offer his faith to the goddess, or die and become a nightshade in the goddess' kingdom. Shah-Ir said affirmatively. There was some surprise in Bishop Electra's blue eyes. Are all secret praying people like this? Maynard, your beliefs are a bit extreme. Bishop Electra didn't know what kind of mood she was in when she said this. They simply acquiesced to clearing out the descendants of the Antigonus family. Shah-Ir actually wanted him to work for the church. To offer his faith to the goddess. Mr. Bishop, why do you say that my beliefs are extreme? Isn't it a happy thing to be able to believe in the goddess? Mr. Bieber's life is tragic enough. He lost his mother and was forced to be involved in this extraordinary event. I just want to share my happiness with him. Is there anything wrong with that? After he believes in the goddess, his heart will surely be at peace. Shah-Ir's eyes were serious, and he tapped his chest 4 times with an extremely pious posture. Praise the goddess. Praise the goddess. ×2. Bishop Electra and Senior Grey responded with the same praise. The two people actually had a lot to say, but they just couldn't refute anything Shah-Ir said. He has tied faith and happiness together, how can you refute this? Besides, the church also has to save face. It can't just kill them all without giving them a chance, right? What if they corrupt the new members? You still need to pay more attention to safety. This time, we will focus on the opinions of our predecessors. Bishop Electra said with a headache. He actually felt that Shah-Ir believed in the goddess too much. Who has the problem? Mr. Bishop, I know that I will not joke with the lives of my companions. I also know the dangers of the secret prayer. Can I apply for one more sealed artifact? It's best to be able to stabilize the spirit. Shah-Ir shook his head, throwing away the idea that suddenly popped into his mind of soaking the goddess of night in formalin, and then looked at Bishop Electra expectantly. The number of people you have for this mission meets the requirements. I will help you apply. Also, I admire your belief in the goddess, but we also have to respect other people's beliefs, do you understand me? Bishop Electra said, rubbing his brow. I understand that faith is free and the goddess is tolerant. Shah-Ir responded with a smile. He suddenly wanted to lick the goddess of night. Grass. Damn desire. Damn depravity. Damn faith. After get off work, pray to the ancient sun god 10 times to offset the effect. The sacrificial ritual requested by the fool must also be completed sooner. My queen is the best in the world, goddess of night, go away. Shah-Ir quickly adjusted his mental state. He closed his eyes and meditated for a while, then regained his composure. It seems you can still listen to me. Bishop Electra said with satisfaction. Of course he noticed Shah-Ir's self-adjustment. There is one more thing. Come out with me for a moment. Mr. Bishop glanced at Allison, then took Shah-Ir to the empty archive room next door. The church helped you resolve the misunderstanding you had with Lady Catherine last time. Lady Catherine also understands your situation. The bishop told Shah-Ir a good news. After he learned from Shah-Ir what happened at the banquet last time, he went to visit Countess Hall. The lady's attitude was very gentle. Not only did she express her understanding, she also cared about Shah-Ir's condition. It seemed that she really didn't take it to heart. Why did you ask the Hall family for extraordinary materials related to the Dawn Rooster? Bishop Electra continued to ask. Perhaps Alice needs it. Maybe I need it too. Shah-Ire thought for a moment and said. I shouldn't have told you about the change of route so early. Bishop Electra sighed, then said seriously. Changing pathways is not as easy as you think. As far as I know, it is relatively safe to change pathways from sequence 5 to sequence 4. If a low sequence wants to change pathways, it will also lead to madness. Don't think about changing your route. I will help you find a way to pray to others secretly. Thank you, I know, I'll listen to your advice. Shah-Ire leaned over and bowed to the bishop. It would be great if you could really make me worry less. Bishop Electra glared at Shah-Ire, then turned and left. It's not like he hadn't thought about letting Shah-Ire stop at sequence 9 and not get promoted. But, the look in this student's eyes, he knew he couldn't stop him. Instead of letting the other party figure out a way to change his route on his own, it is better to work harder and help him arrange the future path. At least this student is really willing to listen to his opinions, unlike. He also didn't want to see the other party betray his faith in the goddess like a former colleague. Ince Zangwil was once a good friend of his, but his friend had died long before he failed in his promotion to demigod. Back in the office, Grace Senpei came up to me and asked curiously. What did Bishop Electra just say to you? You mean, you want me to not betray the faith of the goddess? Shah-Ire summarized and said. Secret? Grace Senpei asked tentatively. Not really. Shah-Ire sat back at his workstation and replied. Could it be that you said last time, that you fell in love with someone else's wife? The mystery-seeking lady couldn't control her curiosity at all. Allison, do you have to be so blunt? Where's Rune's signature euphemism? Also, that's not love, it's just pure desire. Shah-Ire didn't even call her senior sister anymore. He was somewhat thankful now. Distance creates beauty. He and Klein Moretti only needed to get to know each other and keep a certain distance. From now on, when we go crazy, each of us will go crazy on our own. Tactful. Why weren't you tactful when you were doing combat training with me? Allison Gray looked at Shah-Ire unhappily. She was a senior after all, and this guy actually hit her. She almost lost the fight. Mr. Bishop, help me to make peace. This matter is over now. Shah-Ire also told part of the matter to the bishop at that time. It was mainly the extraordinary material of the Dawn Rooster, paving the way for his future promotion within the Church of Night. In the Church of Night, the track for the Sleepless is too competitive, while the track for the Secret Prayers seems to be their own, with a bright future. Hey, you can't blame the potion for everything. This is actually a common problem among men. Most men have this problem. Those who think this is a disease are actually a minority. After sending a telegram to Tingan, Allison leaned back in her chair and smiled. You're right. Identity is just an additional bonus. It still depends on whether the other person has a certain charm. Shah-Ire thought for a moment and said. She's attractive? Allison asked, suddenly straightening up. Yes, coincidentally. Of course Shah-Ire would never say bad things about others. Oh, so, dear Maynard, can I ask you a question? Allison asked, leaning against her desk. Aren't you asking enough? Shah-Ire rolled his eyes and sorted through the documents that Allison had screened. Did the potion amplify your desires before? Allison asked as she walked up behind Shah-Ire and checked his work. I guess so. Potions can't magnify something that doesn't exist. I can't resist the so-called pleasure, how pitiful. Shah-Ire said this, but there was no intention of repentance at all. Both are time travelers. Grisha and Klein have transcended vulgar interests. He would still rather sit at the same table with Russell. You mean, you and I were in the same office every day, but you didn't have any reaction. It was only when you took time out at night to attend a banquet and saw other women that you had desires. Not only that, when you found me the second time, you held my hand and had no reaction. You even cried to me and said that you had desires for other women who you only spent a few moments with. Is that right? Allison asked softly, placing her hands on Sher's shoulders. The woman who almost failed in the head-on PK planned to find an excuse to bring up old issues. After get off work today, let's do some more fighting training. Okay, don't drink this time. Shah-Ir thought of his last experience and shook his head. After drinking, they practiced fighting. It was like domestic violence. Wednesday, July 11th, morning. According to the arrangement of the bishop, we are going to Tingan City today to recover the Antigonus family notes. Only at this time did Shah-Ir prepare to complete the side quest assigned by Mr. Fool. Perform a ritual sacrifice to Mr. Fool. Martin personally brought fenapot noodles, white bread, Dixie pies and other food to Shah-Ir. Although the butler guessed that his young master might want to conduct some strange mystical experiment again, the food was so safe that he did not want to dissuade him. He just gently reminded him that it was best not to waste food and that he would deal with the leftover ingredients. Shah-Ir lit 4 candles and prayed as the fool requested. A fool who does not belong to this era. You are the mysterious master above the gray fog. You are the yellow and black king who controls good luck. I beg for your help. I pray for your favor. I pray that you will let me have a good dream. He didn't care at all whether it was strange to pray for a good dream in the morning. Above the gray fog, Klein heard the angel's prayer. He began to meditate and observe the somewhat blurry prayer scene. It was a man in a black robe, looking at the flickering firelight and praying softly. Klein could tell that this was the angel, the one who responded most actively and completed the ceremony the latest. I see. Klein's mind moved, and he passed on the answer. I know. I know. I know. Fuzzy sounds kept echoing. Shah-Ir lowered his head and thought for a while, and came to the conclusion that even if he was a listener, there would be no benefit in hearing such a voice. This was not too disappointing, so he picked up the Dipsy pie next to the candle and started eating. Gurgle. Above the gray fog, before the scene disappeared, Klein, who had not eaten breakfast yet, looked at the DC pie filled with ingredients and couldn't help but feel a little hungry. Hateful. These offerings should also be offered to the gods, right? After completing the ritual eating, Shah-Ir handed the remaining 3 untouched portions of food to Martin. He came to St. Samuel's Cathedral, met 3 night watchmen, greeted them, and then took a level 3 sealed artifact numbered 3089, named Soul Soother's Silver Key, from Bishop Electra. Its appearance: it is a bone china spoon about 15 centimeters long, with 3 obsidians arranged in a triangle inlaid on the end of the handle. Extraordinary characteristics: audience path sequence 7 psychologist. The negative effect is emotional overdraft. After each use, the user will temporarily lose the ability to perceive specific emotions, randomly lose one of joy, anger, sadness, happiness for 12 hours. Frequent use may lead to permanent emotional loss. Passive negative effect: within a radius of 5 meters, the anxiety, fear of all creatures will be automatically weakened, making it easier for the group to enter a state of rational negotiation. Shah-Ir fell in love with this level 3 sealed object at first sight. Isn't this a magical artifact? Even if it was a little excessive, it seemed easier to forgive for the sake of the seal. Allison should have taught you how to build a closed spiritual environment, soak it in nightshade essential oil, and take it out when needed to soothe the out-of-control spirit and mind. Bishop Electra instructed Shah-Ir to string the keys together with silk thread, soak them in a small bottle of essential oil, and finally hang them around his neck. He then introduced Shah-Ir to the 3 night watchmen who were in charge of this mission. Al-Hassan, Borgia, and Lolota, they are all experienced night watchmen. You still have time to get along with each other. Once sealed artifact 2049 is transferred to the specially made sealed container, you will depart for Tingan. 2 midnight poets of the Path of Night, sequence 8, and 1 gravedigger of the Path of Death, very much in the style of the Church of Night. 3 seniors, wish us a smooth journey. Shah-Ir said to the 3 night watchmen. Al-Hassan and the other 2 looked at each other. They gave face to Bishop Electra and greeted Shah-Ir in a friendly manner. They planned to take good care of this newcomer on the way to prevent any problems from occurring with the level 3 seal. After a period of adjustment and waiting, Bishop Electra came over carrying a black box. During this time, his body stiffened slightly, but quickly returned to normal. Through his spiritual vision, Shah-Ir was able to see that the spirits surrounding the bishop pushed him when his body was affected by the seal and became stiff. He moved closer curiously, his movements became stiff, his thoughts became sluggish, and he was controlled without any surprise. Then he was pushed away unhappily by Bishop Electra. Why do you want to try everything? Because of Shah-Ir's indirect influence, the church made the decision ahead of time. At the Backland train station, watching the three seniors constantly bending their arms, stretching them, stiffening from time to time, pushing each other, and releasing their control, in a place like a train station, it was really a bit of an eye-opener. If they had not shown their official documents, they would have been detained and questioned by the staff on duty. Shah-Ir wanted to keep a safe distance from them, but Ms. Lorota pulled him over and held his arm. Considering that the newcomers could not bear to see their seniors make a fool of themselves and had to share the joys and sorrows together, Shah-Ir accepted it. When the next stiffness selected Lolota, Shah-Ir reached out and held the lady's waist and pulled her, and the stiffness was lifted. Is this actually possible? The two grown men, Al-Hassan and Borgia, looked at each other suddenly, and then saw a trace of disgust in each other's eyes. They would rather continue to be watched by others than have any physical intimacy, even the most ordinary holding hands. 4 people shared an iron box and rode a steam train at public expense, occupying an entire carriage. With great difficulty, they escorted the sealed object, 2049, to Tingan within 1 day. The only difference is that the task of carrying the box was given to Shah-Ir. He carried the black iron box in one hand and held a good-looking senior in the other. The burden of life was all on the newcomer's shoulders, making him a little breathless. Perhaps this is the price that must be paid for growing up. Tingan City, Blackthorn Security Company, Channy's Gate Guard Room. Dunn Smith went to find Klein to cooperate with the operation, leaving Leonard Mitchell to accompany the 4 people from Backland. Shah-Ir looked at the poet classmate for a few times. He had black hair and blue eyes, was handsome and elegant, and was a good-looking beauty. Leonard noticed Shah-Ir's gaze, but he didn't care about the other person's scrutiny. He was obviously used to being the center of attention, and he showed a confident and easygoing smile. Although he was still doing the arm flexion and stretching exercise, it did not affect his calmness and composure at all. Not long after, Klein followed Dunn into the duty room, and Dunn briefly introduced everyone. Klein Moretti, he has a strange connection with Antigonus's notebook. These are colleagues from the Backland diocese. Al-Hassan, a fellow as old as I am. Borgia, Ms. Sharpshooter Lorota, Bennett Maynard. Klein looked at each person in turn according to Dunn's introduction. There was a man who looked like the captain, a cold man with a scar on his face, a black-haired woman in her 30s wearing androgynous clothing, and the last one, she was looking at him with a pair of attractive icy blue eyes. Let's go, everyone, and complete the task as soon as possible. Al-Hassan, the leader of the Backland team, stood up and said. Klein was still wondering where sealed artifact 2049 was. I really hope this can all end soon. This way I still have time to wander around Tingan. Shah-Ir stretched and gently pushed out the black iron box under the table with his foot. Boom! His body became stiff until Lorota pushed him and he returned to normal. This little guy is quite vindictive. Shah-Ir picked up the box and brushed his fingers over the marks of stars and red moon engraved on it. Sealed artifact 2049 has the properties of being alive. Do not provoke it. Don't even kick it. Al-Hassan glared at the newcomer and took the iron box from Shah-Ir. If it breaks so easily, I'll definitely go find trouble with those guys in the props group when I get back. Shah-Ir muttered softly, which made the mature and calm Al-Hassan couldn't help but laugh. How can you call your colleagues in your church the props group? If it breaks after just a touch like this, he will go back and cause trouble. Simple tidying up. Everyone started to move and began to leave the underground duty room of Blackthorn Security Company. Boom boom. From time to time, there would be loud knocking sounds coming from the iron boxes on the road, and then a person would be randomly selected to become stiff. With 7 players on the field, Klein would be picked once every 3 times. When he was chosen for the second time, Shah-Ir simply walked to Klein's side. When Klein smiled politely and asked him what he wanted to do, Shah-Ir reached out and knocked on the surface of the iron box, then quickly moved to Klein's side. Boom boom boom. The puppet in the iron box smashed the iron box and made several bulges. However, this time the one being controlled was Klein, who did nothing. Klein was pushed by Leonard with a smile. He turned around with resentment and found that Shah-Ir had already disappeared 5 meters away. He was holding a notebook in his hand and seemed to be recording something. After arriving on the carriage, Klein was about to say something, but Shah-Ir flipped through the mission briefing and said casually, "Mr. Moretti, the files show that you are a survivor of the Antigonus Note incident." He twirled the pen in his hand and pointed at the iron box on the ground, which had temporarily gone quiet. "It seems that it has a special interest in you. Maybe you can become friends." Klein looked embarrassed, and Leonard wanted to make a joke, but they both noticed that the pen in Shah-Ir's hand stopped spinning and almost fell to the ground, but he himself did not react. Lolota, who was standing next to him, pushed Shah-Ir, freeing him from his stiff state. Seeing this, Leonard couldn't help but say, "This seal is really peculiar. Klein, it seems that it doesn't want to be friends with you." Klein was too tired to complain. Who would want to be friends with such a weird sealed object? After this little episode, the atmosphere inside the carriage gradually became quiet. After that, no one spoke, only Lolota told Shah-Ir to keep an eye on her, and then she relaxedly admired the not-so-beautiful scenery on Tingan Street. Not long after, everyone arrived at the target building. The 2 captains went in first. Sealed Artifact 2049 sensed the breath of Antigonus' descendants and went into a violent state. Both of them were controlled at the same time. Lolota helped push Dunn, and Shah-Ir pushed Klein, who was unlucky enough to be hit again. "I suggest you pray to the goddess or perform a purification ritual after this mission. There must be something strange about you. 2-409 can smell it, and maybe something else will notice you." As Shah-Ir spoke, he suddenly felt that fate was very interesting. If the Sequence 1 old man who was parasitic on Leonard did not lack the characteristics of the Sequence 2 Fate Trojan horse, he should be able to notice the peculiarity of Klein, right? Could Klein dare to say that he didn't do anything in the bathroom of Blackthorn Security Company? But he lacked the authority over fate, so he did not notice the gray mist on Klein. Shah-Ir leaned close to Klein and sniffed it, then shrank back in disgust. Klein's fist became a little stiff, and Leonard laughed on the side. It is also easy to confirm the old man's existence. The temperament of an ordinary orphan is different from the temperament of the protagonist, of the portable grandfather style. It was hard for Shah-Ir not to notice. Doesn't it only affect one person at a time? Klein forced himself to change the subject. Of course, he still had some lingering fears. He was just about to step forward to help, but then he was charged again, as if he was waiting for him. A level 2 sealed artifact is not that safe. If I give it a good slam, it might get so angry that it might take control of all of us. As Shah-Ir spoke, he felt Borgia's sharp gaze and quickly used Klein's body to shield himself. "Senior Borgia, I was just kidding." Klein faced the hawk-like gaze awkwardly. "This guy is a bit familiar, isn't he? Why did he feel that the other party was treating him as a tool to collect data on 2049? Klein moved his feet and let Shah-Ir out from behind him. He planned to stay away from this guy. Shah-Ir also consciously stayed away from the iron box. He was not the one who would cause the whole group to be wiped out. After everyone was checked in the room, they returned to the carriage. Al-Hassan placed the iron box on the ground and turned the switch to release the spiritual blockade. Bang! The box fell over, and a brown puppet arm stretched out. Then it crawled out little by little. Its face was covered with thick oil paint and had a clown nose. It turned its head around and looked at Klein with a funny smile. Klein's heart sank. He was captured again, and this time he didn't even have the chance to call for help. The power of the seal seemed to have grown stronger. Klein felt himself falling into the abyss. He wanted to ask for help, but the words were stuck in his throat. He was filled with fear. Shah-Ir laughed out loud, and the clown doll turned his head. He was also controlled and his smile became stiff. Leonard, who also wanted to laugh, silently covered his mouth and lowered his head, but did not forget to reach out and push him. "Help me." After being pushed, Klein finally returned to normal. The cry for help that was stuck just now was a little sharp and terrified. Immediately afterwards, Shah-Ir was also pushed and continued his interrupted laughter. "Sorry, Mr. Fool." Shah-Ir's laughter made Klein, who had regained his sanity, less frightened. The discomfort and panic of being in the same carriage with a dangerous sealed object was reduced. The atmosphere became less heavy. After all, they are all newcomers. Klein didn't want to lose face for the Tingan Knight squad in front of his counterparts in the big city. "It's gotten stronger," Klein said with certainty and a straight face. "This iron box has a sealing effect. After the sealed object is released from the seal, it will of course become stronger. But it's annoying that it keeps targeting me," Shah-Ir said as he took out a silver amulet. "Senior hasten, that should be okay, right?" he asked as he took out some thread and strung the silver charm together. Is this what Allison taught you?" Al-Hassan nodded, watched Shah-Ir put the sleeping charm around the puppet's neck, and then asked. "I guess so. She even asked me to help her collect some first-hand information," Shah-Ir said as he folded it lightly, shifting the ritual symbols on the surface and bending a corner of the talisman made of silver foil. Klein, who had made up for his occult knowledge, recognized that it was a sleeping spell. After putting on the spell, sealed artifact 2049 was no longer as active as before. "Why do you have to bend the talisman on purpose?" Klein asked doubtfully. "This isn't how a spell is used. If you break it a little, the power of the spell will start to leak out. When it is stimulated by external factors, it can be passively activated. The leaked power will affect the nearest puppet and will not interfere with us too much." As Shah-Ir spoke, the puppet stood up shakily and pointed in a direction. "That way." Al-Hassan immediately signaled to his teammate who was driving. "I suspect this puppet was abandoned by a member of Antigona's family. Otherwise, why is it so pit?" Shah-Ir hadn't finished speaking when, as if some sensitive words had been triggered, the world in front of his eyes became blurry. The talisman worn on the clown puppet's neck was destroyed by the violent power, and the dormant power gradually calmed the puppet, and it just stared at Shah-Ir with deep eyes. Boom! Lolota raised her hand and tapped Shah-Ir on the head. "I'd better go sit outside the carriage." Shah-Ir stood up speechlessly and sat next to Dunn, who was driving. He had never seen such a stingy puppet. "How about we put another charm on it?" Klein noticed that the puppet was looking at him again, and he spoke with some uneasiness. "Let me do it." Leonard took out a sleeping talisman and gently broke it. The spiritual power dissipated and the talisman became waste. His hands froze, and Klein was so scared that he quickly pushed him, only to find that the guy was fine. The atmosphere inside the car became awkward for a moment. The carriage drove quickly until it arrived at the warehouse area near the dock. After confirming the location, Al-Hassan grabbed the resisting 2049, and with the help of two team members, he struggled to stuff the puppet back into the iron box, turned the mechanical device, and opened the sealing effect of the iron box. "Get out of the car." Dunn Smith greeted the crowd. 7 people were doing bending and stretching exercises, and walking towards the inner warehouse. Shah-Ir tugged at Lorota's black coat and asked, "Go straight in. Don't we discuss tactics?" Shah-Ir was not used to it. Why was this different from what he imagined? "Ah, I forgot. Since the 3 of us are old teammates, we already have a tacit understanding. It's okay, just hide behind me later." Lolota didn't expect Shah-Ir to ask this. She smiled and patted Shah-Ir on the shoulder. "They have handled such tasks many times and have prepared a backup plan. I understand. I just need to cooperate, okay?" Only then did Shah-Ir truly realize that he was really following along just to see the world. He is not the main C player, even if these teammates seem unreliable. A newly converted civilian staff. Klein glanced at Shaw Iyer. He would soon be promoted to a regular employee, and his weekly salary would increase to £4.5. After approaching the warehouse door within 10 meters, Dunn stopped, looked at Klein and said, "Divination whether there is any danger inside. No need to divine, it's very dangerous in there." As soon as Klein took out the divination crystal, Shaw Iyer gave the answer. Klein looked over in confusion. "I am a secret praying person. I could sense danger brewing." Shaw Iyer's inspiration was already giving him a warning, so there was no need for divination. "Let's do some divination again to confirm if there is any danger in the surrounding environment," Leonard said. "Yes, if the secret society has been monitoring Bieber's home, they may follow us here." Dunn agreed. Shaw Iyer looked at Klein, who had started divination, and was about to say something but stopped. Why didn't he divine whether someone was following him in the carriage just now? Bishop Electra asked him to go with her and see the world. But this world is just a huge makeshift team. Shaw Iyer could feel that some strange changes had begun in the warehouse. If they were not stopped, there might be bigger troubles. Did they still need to do divination at the door? Don't you know that the notebook can also predict whether we have reached the door? Then let's split up. You guys will cover the rear, and I'll lead the way. I also have a sealed item with me, so my actual combat power is actually very strong. Shaw Iyer was somewhat disappointed with this action. He took out the ornament from his collar and ran towards the warehouse door. The surrounding environment is dangerous. Klein sensed that someone was interfering with his divination and quickly reminded them loudly. Maynard. Al-Hassan saw that his team member had left the team without permission and ran towards the warehouse gate at a very fast speed. He immediately wanted to catch up with Shaw Iyer. However, at this moment an orange-yellow fireball suddenly flew over and hit the center of the crowd at an extremely fast speed. These night watchmen had no time to care about Shaw Iyer for the time being and had to dodge. Watch the box. Al-Hassan rolled over to avoid the fireball and threw the box a few meters away where it would not affect the battle. Leonard and Borgia approached quickly, protecting 2049 from 7 meters away. "Done, I leave this to you. I have to go and bring my team back. Lolota, if you need support here, signal me at any time." Al-Hassan drew out his silver rapier, gave some instructions to Dunn and Lolota, who were standing guard with guns, and then rushed towards the warehouse inside. Although it is not appropriate to divide the troops at this time, this charming middle-aged gentleman is unlikely to abandon his team members just like that. Moreover, it was enough for Dunn, a Sequence 7, to lead 3 Sequence 8s and 1 Sequence 9. It is he who is in danger. Boom boom boom. As he got closer, Al-Hassan could already hear the dull thumping sounds coming from inside the warehouse. His dissatisfaction, impatience, and worry over Shaw Iyer's unauthorized actions gradually subsided. His heart sank, and he knew that this was the passive ability of the sealed object, 3089. "I hope it's okay." When he rushed into the factory gate, he saw candles that looked like remnants of a ritual in the warehouse and dark red bloodstains on the ground. Shaw Iyer bit the silver spoon of the soul soother in his mouth, held a notebook with a black cover in one hand, and held a picked-up steel pipe in the other hand, and kept knocking back a middle-aged man who had both hands broken and was screaming miserably. He saw Al-Hassan coming in and shouted loudly, "Senior, I have suppressed him. You've come just in time, let's go together. When the danger warning continues to increase and your teammates are still dragging their feet." Shaw Iyer simply abandoned these burdens, left the team alone, and kicked open the door of the closed warehouse. He immediately saw Bieber holding the Antigonus family notebook and undergoing some mysterious ritual to absorb the mysterious power contained in it. Shaw Iyer did not give the opponent a chance to develop. He directly smashed the glass bottle containing the sealed object 3089, bit the bone china spoon inside, and injected spirituality into it. One of the 3 obsidians inlaid in the spoon handle lit up, and Shaw Iyer's pupils became somewhat vertical, which was equivalent to the mental shock released by the audience's Sequence 7 psychiatrist himself, locking onto Bieber. Roar. Riel Bieber seemed to see a ferocious dragon roaring at him angrily. The semi-sleeping state he had fallen into due to the ceremony was affected, and his consciousness gradually became clear. He looked at the Beander who broke in violently, and became terrified and panicked. He had unconsciously sensed the approaching danger and was about to swallow the notebook in one gulp to speed up the absorption of power, but his action was interrupted. Bang! At the moment when the other party lost his mind, Shah-Ir shot the black notebook that Riel Bieber was holding, and the Antigonus family notebook flew out of his hand. The terrified Riel Bieber suddenly became crazy and actually had the ability to predict the future, and directly avoided Shah-I's subsequent shots. He pounced on the Antigonus family's notes as quickly as if he wanted to eat them directly. Bang! Bang! Notes were constantly blown away by bullets. Shah-Ir looked at Riel Bieber who was on the verge of losing control. He picked up a steel pipe piled in the warehouse. The third obsidian on the spoon in his mouth glowed faintly, and his arms trembled slightly with excitement. He took 2 steps at a time and rushed forward to give his patient a psychological treatment. Riel Bieber went berserk and his body began to swell abnormally, a sign of something going terribly out of control. The corners of Shah-Ir's mouth curled up, and his aura became dangerous. When Al-Hassan rushed over, he saw Riel Bieber with both his hands broken. This descendant of the Antigonus family tried frantically to snatch back the notebook from Shur's hands, but every time he charged blindly, he was knocked back by a thick steel pipe. Al-Hassan slowed down his pace and began to chant a beautiful poem. Whenever the sun sets in the west, dewdrops adorn the evening's clothes. Evening primrose nourished by night dew. A graceful and delicate flower bloomed. The chanting of the midnight poets made the mad Riel Bieber less crazy. Shah-Ir bit the soup spoon, hit the guy on the back with a stick, and added a soothing shot, making him faint completely. Done, call it a day. Shah-Ir threw the steel pipe in his hand to the ground. He wanted to smile, but he just pulled the corners of his mouth stiffly. He lost his joy. According to the negative effects of the sealed object, 3089, it is possible to recover only after 12 hours. What's going on? Al-Hassan walked up and asked, looking at Riel Bieber, who was lying on the ground in a very miserable state. He may have sensed the danger and wanted to eat the book. I was a little too harsh. He was affected by the power of this notebook and became like a half-beyond. Shah-Ir stroked the surface of the notebook as he spoke. Even the bullet did not penetrate the cover of the notebook. Riel Bieber used the ritual recorded in this notebook to absorb the remaining power of Antigonus. Because of the blood of Antigonus's descendants, he did not die immediately, but was also affected by the power of the note and was on the verge of losing control, until he was saved by Shah-I's heavy blow mixed with mental comfort. Is this the descendant of the great nobles of the Tudor dynasty? He doesn't look that great. As he spoke, he squatted down and looked at Riel Bieber. His facial features and temperament were very ordinary. Maybe it was because he shaved his beard cleanly, he didn't look like the descendant of a demon wolf. Shah-Ir had to admit that the main reason for saving this guy's life was stamp collecting. The descendants of the 5 great nobles of the Tudor dynasty are quite valuable for collection. This may be the last descendant of the demon wolf. It's a pity that he died. What if it's still of some use? Al-Hassan looked at Shah-Ir who had already started to touch the corpse. He didn't know what to say for a moment. Should he blame the other party for being impulsive and reckless and not listening to orders? But, if Shah-Ir hadn't rushed in time to subdue Riel Bieber, and wait until Mr. Bobby swallowed the Antigonus family notes, they might have to face an out-of-control horrible monster, and with the addition of the secret order members outside, they might suffer casualties even if they have more people. There are still members of the secret society outside. You stay here to watch this guy and this notebook. Don't go out easily. Be careful. Got it. Al-Hassan gave Shah-Ir some instructions, then turned and left the warehouse to go back and support Dunn. Let me see. Seeing that no one came to disturb him for the time being, Shah-Ir opened the Antigonus family notes and started reading. He quickly skimmed through the notes and the language in the notes did not become an obstacle to reading. The issue of interpreting the contents of the notes is not complicated. He was responsible for recording, and the interpretation was left to his past self. The formula for the Fool's Path potion, the method of making various spells of the Fool's Path, and the whereabouts of Antigone's treasure. Shah-Ir read quietly, his eyes gradually becoming empty. He raised the pistol and pointed it at his temple. Before pulling the trigger, a hint of green flashed in his eyes. With the help of the power of the resentful spirit, he forcibly freed himself from the controlled state. Interesting. Shah-Ir continued to flip through the pages, and suddenly his fingers paused. He saw some interesting occult rituals. By praying to those in higher positions and using the power of higher levels, the projection of the kingdom of God is overlapped with the real world. Why does this ceremony feel a bit like the Fool's Path Sequence 1 promotion ceremony? Shah-Ir continued reading and saw the ritual that Bieber used to absorb the extraordinary power in the notebook. With his knowledge, he could tell that this ceremony had a bit of the flavor of the Second Age. The way vampires inherit their inheritance has subtle similarities to this. These were the accumulations and attempts within various supernatural races before the potion system became popular. The Fourth Age. The half-angel sure closed his eyes and analyzed this occult ritual. He simply simulated the effect of the ritual and then had some inspiration. This ritual seems to be somewhat useful. Inside the dock warehouse, Shah-Ir looked at the unconscious Bieber and the Antigone's notes in his hand, and he made a decision. This is at least a level 1 sealed artifact, and contains the remnants of Antigone's power. If Anbanu had not been sealed by the goddess of night, perhaps he could have borrowed half of the fool's power. It's a bit of a waste to give it to the church like this. They won't be able to use it, and they might be hurt by the power of the notebook. Shah-Ir turned around and faced the direction of the door, holding the Antigone's family notebook in one hand and the notebook he always carried with him in the other. His fingers gently slid across the quaternary notes, and the spell ability to turn paper into something took effect. Several pages fell off the notebook naturally without leaving any signs of being torn. He pasted these pages into his notebook, then held the two notebooks and stood at the place where Bieber had just held the occult ceremony. He first used ritual magic to channel the power of the notebooks to erase all traces of occultism. After building a secret environment, Shah-Ir lowered his head and prayed silently. A fool who does not belong to this era. You are the mysterious master above the gray fog. You are the yellow and black king who controls good luck. I pray for your strength, and ask you to give me the power to transfer spirits. As Shah-Ir prayed, a deep red star symbolizing Shah-Ir lit up above the gray fog. This message was automatically responded to or withdrawn by Shah-Ir's crimson star. He did not disturb Klein, who was fighting the secret order. The self-produced and self-sold occult news did not disturb Klein, who was fighting the secret order. Shah-Ir held the Antigone's notebook and performed mysterious rituals and prayer sacrifices at the same time. With a flick of his hand, he turned the paper into something useful. The ordinary notebook turned into a little man who looked like Bieber. Using Bieber's blood on the ground as a guide, he manipulated the paper man and started the ritual of absorbing extraordinary powers again. During this process, he completed his prayer to the gray fog, and used the remaining power of Antigonus in the fourth epic notes to leverage some of the power of the gray fog, speeding up the completion of the transfer ritual, and integrating some of the power of the gray fog into his own notes. As a secret praying person, Shah-Ir is very good at various rituals and sacrifices. His figure became somewhat illusory, and with the help of the power of the resentful spirits, he channeled the notebook and the gray fog's inherent ability to conceal and eliminate mysterious traces. Too lazy to find divination tools, I just quickly count with my fingers and rely on spiritual intuition for support. Xiao-Ji. This means that the fight outside will continue for a while and no one will disturb me for the time being. But someone might mess with you. In a red house in Tingan City, a hand holding a feather pen was writing with some force. Although Bieber was affected by the sealed artifact 3089 and did not go out of control and seriously injure the Nighthawks, Al-Hassan was also affected by the negative effects of the sealed artifact and chose to leave Bennett Maynard alone in the safe warehouse. A young and impulsive Bieber obviously cannot withstand this test. He will be attracted by the power of Antigonus's notebook, and the secret prayer will also be more able to feel the power contained in the notebook. He might be unable to resist trying a mysterious ritual recorded in the notebook. Before the members of the secret society break in and disrupt the ritual, he has plenty of time to read the notebook and be affected by its power. This ritual magic is relatively simple. Even Bieber, who was just an ordinary person before, can do it. Shah-Ir followed the ritual and transferred part of the remaining mysterious power in the notebook to another notebook. He also used some paper from Antigonus's notebook as a carrier and the power of the gray fog as a buffer to maintain the stability of the ritual. Something went wrong midway through the ceremony. How did it go wrong? Living people can become extraordinary and out of control, so can paper people also become extraordinary and out of control. Shah-Ir just watched as abnormal white mucus flowed out of the body of the paper man he made, and small insects began to tear the body of the paper man apart. How could a low-level ceremony that he personally performed fail? Shah-Ir calmly used his spell-like ability to transform into paper. The little bugs that came out of the paper man turned into paper again, repairing the paper man's damaged body, and the ceremony returned to normal. The ceremony went very smoothly. Shah-Ir moved his ears and took the paper man back into his arms. Bang! He turned his head to avoid a flying card knife. Shah-Ir's attention was attracted by a clown in a tuxedo. The other party snapped his fingers. Air bullet. Shah-Ir used the fourth arrow note as a shield in front of him and then opened fire. The pistol bullet passed through Tuxedo Clown like it was a phantom. The air bullet hit the Antigonus family's notes but failed to penetrate them. The Tuxedo Clown lit the cards he had just thrown, jumped through the flames, and flashed behind Shah-Ir. The cards in his hand turned into a sharp long knife and chopped at Shah-Ir's arm, intending to snatch Antigonus's notes and evacuate immediately. "You wanna double jump with me?" As Shah-Ir turned and rolled, he injected spirituality into sealed object 3089. Among the 3 gems inlaid on the handle, the middle one, the obsidian representing madness, lit up. The Tuxedo Clown's eagerness to complete the mission quickly and escape thousands of miles away was ignited. He also released air bullets again when he felt the crisis. Bang! Shah-Ir did not dodge the simulated bullet sound. He felt like he was shot and rolled over, enduring the pain. The Tuxedo Clown stood at the place where Shah-Ir had just held the ceremony, holding in his hand the quaternary notes that Shah-Ir had accidentally thrown away, and covering his swollen head. Sequence 7 of the Diviner's Path is more susceptible to the influence of the higher aura in the environment, whether it is the remaining Antigonus notes or the aura of gray fog. He was injured and his spiritual energy was severely depleted, but he still took the mental attack from the audience's seal. There was already madness in his eyes. The other Nighthawks also rushed over at this time, and saw the clown who was inexplicably extraordinary and out of control. He stole the 4th Age notebook. He also sneak attacked me. Shah-Ir covered the injured area and staggered into Loluta's arms. He tried his best. Hey, hey, hey. Heavy gasps were heard, and the Tuxedo Clown seemed to have gone mad, biting the body of real Bieber on the ground. Blood stained his painted face red and dripped onto the notebook clenched in his palm, activating the power in the notebook that had not yet submerged. The flesh and blood on his body began to rot, his bones began to swell, and a violent and dangerous aura began to spread. Extraordinary, out of control. Dunn's eyes became solemn, and there seemed to be little snakes flowing under his skin. This Sequence 7 nightmare wanted to drag the Tuxedo Clown into his dream, but his spell was interrupted by the other party's roar. He was mentally shocked and groaned. "Mr. Moretti, please take care of Maynard." Lolota did not dare to be careless. She handed the injured Shah-Ir to Klein, who had the lowest combat power, for care, and then began to observe the other party's spiritual weaknesses through the eye of the dead. Whenever the sun sets in the west. Al-Hassan Bulgiar began to sing psalms to assist Dun. Borgia and Leonard are outside looking at sealed artifact 2049. At the same time, prevent the secret society and its remnants from coming to support. Klein supported Shah-Ir and wanted to join the battle, but he was powerless. You can use this, just hold it, don't bite it. Shah-Ir used Klein's clothes to wipe the porcelain spoon he had bitten, and then handed the seal to Klein. Klein looked at how Shah-Ir treated his newly bought formal suit. He wanted to let go and let this guy lie on the ground. However, due to the passive power of the seal, he couldn't get angry. In the end, his body still honestly took the seal. How do I use this seal? You just need to inject spirituality. The first 2 gems are psychological shock, which disrupts emotions, psychological frenzy, which triggers emotions, and the last one is psychological comfort, which calms emotions. It's simple, right? Shah-Ir said simply. After he finished explaining, he closed his eyes, looking very tired. Klein didn't dare to disturb the wounded's rest. While supporting Shah-Ir, he observed the battle situation on the scene. With the help of Midnight Poet, Dunn successfully used Nightmare's power to restrain the out-of-control Tuxedo Joker. Klein also wisely used psychological deterrence to disrupt Tuxedo Joker's performance. After Ms. Lolota saw through the weakness of the out-of-control extraordinary person from a spiritual perspective, she rushed forward and punched him twice. The Tuxedo Clown's vitals were hit hard. Even though he was out of control, he was still greatly stimulated. He opened his mouth and was about to let out a roar that could pierce a person's eardrum. This time, Klein seized the opportunity keenly. When the Tuxedo Clown's emotions reached their peak, he detonated his emotions through frenzy. Boom! Under the righteous beating, the ugly, out-of-control monster fell. Klein detonated the spirits that were already out of control and becoming broken. The Nighthawks team won the final victory. It's okay, the wound is not serious. Just rest for a few days. After the battle, Lorota said as she helped Shah-Ir check his wounds. Because it is an air bullet, the bullet will not get stuck in the body and there is no need to remove the shell. Lolota bandaged Shah-Ir's wound. Dunn briefly flipped through the Antigonus family notes without attempting to interpret them. Because the power in the notes had been consumed several times, it had no effect on him. After confirming that everything was correct, he praised Klein. Klein, you did a good job. You had a great sense of timing. This shows that my shooting training was not in vain. Klein smiled a little sheepishly. He held the silver key of the Soul Soother in his hand, feeling reluctant to return the sealed object to Shah-Ir. This is really useful. After using it, he understood why Shah-Ir was able to restrain Bieber. Mr. Moretti, you really should eat more and get more nutrition. Leaning on you makes me feel uncomfortable. Shah-Ir said while leaning in Lolota's arms. Klein frowned, but he found that he couldn't get angry at all. I just feel contempt for the way Shah-Ir, who clearly didn't hurt his legs but was still clinging to Ms. Lorota's arms. Mr. Moretti, Maynard is testing which emotion you have temporarily lost. Each time 3089 is used, the user will lose the ability to perceive specific emotions within 12 hours, or frequent use may lead to permanent loss of emotions. Ms. Lorota smiled as she looked at Klein, who was frowning. She didn't mind holding Shah-Ir. After all, Shah-Ir had done enough, and she was already very grateful that he survived the sneak attack of Tuxedo Clown. Permanent emotional loss. Klein asked back with some difficulty accepting it, and the seal in his hand instantly lost its fragrance. This is just your first time using it, it won't be that serious. In the next few days, Sealed Artifact 2049, Sealed Artifact 3089, and Antigonus's notes will be stored together behind the Chinese gate in Tingan City until you recover, or Backlund sends someone over. Dunn patted Klein on the shoulder and watched everyone make arrangements. Both Shale and Borgia suffered some minor injuries. Of course they could rest for a few days in Tingan. I want to keep Sealed Artifact 3089 for myself. As long as I don't actively use it, its passive effect is actually a benefit. Shah-Ir put forward his own opinion. He is too green now and needs a little sense of security. We will help you recontain 3089 later. Dunn didn't refuse. He continued to examine the two bodies on the ground. The spirits nearby had already been driven away by the power of Antigonus's notes. Now, because of Tuxedo Clown's loss of control, the spirits of the two corpses cannot be investigated through ordinary psychic investigation, which may drive the psychic crazy. Dunn doesn't joke about the safety of his players. I really wanted to save him. Shah-Ir looked at Bieber's body with some regret. He really didn't want to kill this descendant of the demon wolf, but who knew that a Sequence 7 magician would suddenly appear? So many extraordinary people couldn't stop such a slippery guy. You have done your best. Actually, your safety is the most important thing. You took a bit of a risk this time. Dunn wanted to blame Shah-Ir for his unauthorized actions, but in the end he didn't do so. First, Shah-Ir is not his team member. Second, what Shah-Ir did is right. Third, the passive effect of 3089 makes everyone's emotions more restrained. I don't want to either, but I can sense the danger. You still need to use divination to confirm it first. I don't have time to explain to you. Shah-Ir glanced at Klein as he spoke. What are you looking at me for? The secret prayer people are amazing. Klein couldn't get angry and could only smile. Bieber should be using some ancient ritual to absorb the power in the notebook, just like when we take potions. This requires deep sleep and a quiet environment where we can't be disturbed. Our arrival obviously disturbed his absorption. You used the seal to calm his mind before he lost control of his extraordinary powers, but you obviously overlooked one point. The extraordinary power he absorbed did not disappear and was still accumulated in his body. Al-Hassan, who arrived later, did not have enough time to analyze the situation and also overlooked this point. This member of the secret society has overconsumed his spiritual energy in order to get rid of us. What else did you see him do? Dunn analyzed what happened at the scene and turned to ask Shah-Ir. He seems to tear up the notes to make paper figures. Shah-Ir recalled and said uncertainly. That's right. The members of this secret society have the extraordinary ability to use paper dolls as substitutes. He had almost used up all the paper figures he was carrying outside the warehouse, and he snatched the notebook from you. In order to escape from here quickly, he probably wanted to temporarily create 2 paper figures, but he was affected by the power of the notebook and attacked by 3089, so he lost control. After he lost control, he was obviously more interested in Bieber, who had absorbed the power of the notebook on the ground, so he didn't attack you right away. Dunn combined the existing intelligence and guessed the possibilities. I'm not afraid of him. Shah-Ir waved his good arm. Shut up. Then he was hit by Ms. Lorota. I have trained with a Sequence 8 combat scholar. Shah-Ir was obviously still unconvinced. You mean you needed help to stand later? Klein joked with a smile. Both of them are newcomers. Mr. Maynard may have suffered some losses before he realized that newcomers should be more cautious. Chapter 70, The Duke of Natural Disasters, First Order Request. The Fourth Age. Shah-Ir left the Rorstad archipelago and began to move on the sea, hoping to encounter Grossel's travels. At Rhodes's request, Shah-Ir took the magic mirror with him, but he threw the mirror into his own mental island to save the trouble of carrying it with him and to prevent contamination. He didn't leave it all to coincidence. He also carried a book that contained the power of the Elven Scourge and the mystical aura of the negative personality of the fantasy dragon. It could barely be considered a token of faith. On the surface of the book, there is a line of words written in Elvish, Book of Scourge. This is the handwriting that Shah-Ir asked the Elf Queen to write. It's quite beautiful. Rhodes, try to use this book to search the spirit world. I'll just pick a direction. Shah-Ir randomly picked a direction on the sea and started exploring the Sonia Sea. He knew that Grossel's travels could change its appearance and name to hide itself. Whether he could find this book depended on luck and whether the last prayer ceremony was effective. If he can't find it, then look for 008. He knows enough about 008. Sooner or later, this guy will write him into the story, whether it is the future or the present story. The resurrection of the ancient god Angruid requires the encounter of Grossel's journey and sealed artifact 008. As long as Shao-I participates in this process, he will get one of them sooner or later. I'll give you some clues. A giant named Grossel, an elf named Ciatas, and an ascetic monk named Snowman. These are the beings I know of who have come into contact with the notebook. 2 came into contact with it in the Second Age, and 1 came into contact with it in the Third Age. Shar provided Erodes with some information. I can only try my best. Erodes's answer was somewhat reluctant. In fact, if it could be found, Erodes would have had the answer long ago, instead of continuing to search. There is some news about the Dragon Kingdom and the City of Miracles. Erodes directly shared the relevant information with Shar. There have been 2, City of Miracles levished. Is there news about the old dragon hanging in the spirit world? Shah-Ir smiled. Is it a skill to take sides? He was originally a subordinate god of the fantasy dragon. After the fall of the fantasy dragon, he became the king of angels serving the ancient sun god. The ancient sun god fell, and took over the power of the White Tower, becoming the current god of knowledge and wisdom. His evaluation was that after occupying the toilet and taking up the toilet paper, he just didn't take a shit. If you don't want to be God, what are you trying to be? If the White Tower is not in use, it can be donated to people in need. It was indeed him. It seems that the Church of Knowledge is also trying to find this travelogue. Erodes also had little respect for the Dragon of Wisdom. It can't be found. Even the ancient sun god can't find it. Just search slowly with your authority. After searching for 2,000 years, maybe you will find it. Shah-Ir said that he couldn't feel happy when he looked at himself. The all-knowing White Tower will also take 2,000 years to find. What about him? A few weeks later. Let's go to the northern continent. After drifting on the sea for several weeks, Shah-Ir made a decision. According to the original timeline, the next person to accidentally enter the world of the book is a Viscount from the northern continent. More importantly, what he was looking for were books. How could he have salvaged just a few tattered books from the sea in these few weeks? Even if Grossel's travels wants to find me, I don't know how long it will take to drift to the Sonia Sea. Shah-Ir faced the reality and realized that he would not come across this crappy book even if he swam around the sea twice. This crappy book doesn't have to look for me, and it's not that smart. It's too far away, and mystical connections don't work. This is the distribution of the various forces in the northern continent. Erodes didn't wait for Shar to ask, and directly provided a map of the northern continent. On the map, the main activity areas of various churches and supernatural forces are marked with different colors. Land annexation is pretty fast. Except for some islands on the edge, the northern continent is almost painted with various colors. Even now, the number of humans is not enough to completely cover the entire northern continent. But this does not prevent the churches from carrying out missionary work in a mobile manner. It looks like playing house. The 4 colors of black, red, blue and white often overlap. Being the Pope in the 4th era is a dangerous job. Come on, Erodes, let's go and establish a principality on Earth. Shah-Ir dived into the sea and moved quickly with the power of the ocean. He gave up going north, as the sea was now too dense. In the future, the area near the capitals of the Kingdom of Loan, the Kingdom of Phaenoport, and the Phaesac Empire will also be too volatile. The western part of the northern continent, near the Misty Sea, the westernmost part of the future Republic of Intis. Because this place is far away from the center of the northern continent, the land is relatively barren and there are not many forces. Those gods and churches are all on the stage in the center of the north and south continents. You finish your performance and I take the stage. Who with the power of gods would be so useless as to hide in the corners of the continent? Leaden clouds rolled and surged like the back of a giant beast, and several pale lightning bolts pierced the sky. The sea beat against the river bank with a low roar. The people living in this area are so powerless in the face of the horrific natural disasters that they kneel on the ground in fear. Just like when faced with an irresistible disaster in the past. The leader of this area, a sturdy man over 2 meters tall, looked at the sky with a pale face, and his son beside him dropped the axe in his hand to the ground dejectedly. The witch of the tribe, the chief's wife, held a shattered crystal ball in her hand, and the dark purple seaweed juice on her lips was stained dark red. She hugged her young daughter, slowly knelt on the ground, her forehead pressed tightly against the ground, praying for forgiveness from the natural disaster. Following the witch's actions, the guards, whose hearts had long been dominated by fear, dropped their weapons. They knelt on the ground, not daring to run or raise their heads, and whispered inaudible prayers. Shah-Ir stood on the coastal reef, his black robe rustling, his fingertips stroking the Book of Natural Disasters, thunder like a waterfall above his head, and no emotion in his eyes. A faint faith has emerged, but it lacks clear guidance from the name of honor, and not all of it falls on oneself. He snapped his fingers, and bolts of lightning mixed with a violent storm fell on a cliff near the coast. The mountain wall was split by thunder and huge rocks rolled down. The whimpering sobs and terrified screams seemed a little louder, but were soon drowned out by the strong wind. The Principality of Perth was established. Shah controlled the storm and built a huge castle on the cliff. He stood on the terrace of the castle, overlooking the mist rising from the misty sea and looking out over his territory. It is located in the western part of the northern continent, close to the west coast of the future Republic of Intis. The land is barren but far away from the central conflicts. The territory is not small, equivalent to the area of a standard province in the future kingdoms of the northern continent. The terrain is mostly hills and forests along the coast of the Misty Sea, which is easy to defend and difficult to attack. There are also several islands around, which makes it convenient for marine activities. Shah-Ir doesn't have any idle baggage. He can build the castle by himself, and he can also open up wasteland by himself. Storm Ho also feels very interesting. He alone can raise the GDP of the entire principality. But if it develops too well, it may easily offend the church. Just keep pace with other regions. There are already some low and medium sequence extraordinary people here. We can arrange them to participate in the land reclamation and establish an internal circulation of resources in the territory. In this era, let's forget about foreign trade. Rhodes, are you interested in working part-time as a butler? Shah-Ir asked about the magic mirror of the spiritual world. Can I? Rhodes was somewhat surprised. Of course, you can call yourself Roside and use an alias. Shah-Ir waved his hand, and the former lord was dragged onto the terrace by the strong wind. Ocean. The warrior lord looked at the legendary elf in fear. After looking into the pair of pale golden eyes, he was mentally pressured. Fainted. Poseidon. I don't like this name. Shah-Ir said as he created a virtual personality and occupied the other person's body as a container. Rhodes can of course use this virtual personality through Sha'il to carry out activities in his mental island. Shah-Ir, no, I should call you, Master. Butler Rorsted bowed to Shah-Ir. He looked a little uncomfortable, but obviously very happy to be able to move in this posture. Don't disgust me. You can call me Grand Duke, Grand Duke Constantine, or Grand Duke of Scourge. It's okay to be afraid of the Grand Duke. In private, you can call me whatever you want. Shah-Ir refused with a bit of disgust. He was not worthy of such a title. He passed on a simple development plan to Rhodes. Live by the mountain, eat from the mountain, live by the sea, eat from the sea. Besides, can't this, all-knowing, mirror copy homework? You can just play around with this territory. Our focus still needs to be on finding those high-level items. As Shah-Ir spoke, he was also thinking. If we use gray fog for divination, can we shorten the search range? Butler Roside did not interrupt Shah-Ir's thoughts. He was eager to move his legs, and the first step was. It is to let these subjects deeply understand the majesty and kindness of the Duke of Natural Disasters. He walked out onto the terrace and called out to his son in this body, asking him to follow him to patrol the territory. Then he winked at the witch, and asked her to go over and serve the Grand Duke. Chapter 71 Klein, I want you to help me practice First Order. The terrace on the castle. The witch, Shifrin wore a sacrificial robe, with bone rings carved with sea monster totems on her fingers, and held a vessel filled with salt crystals, deep-sea algae and clotted blood shells in her hands. Her daughter followed behind with some fear, holding a tray with fine wine and various fruits. Shah-Ir heard the noise, turned around, and glanced at the witch who was lowering her head and the tray in her hand. Sea salt, pickles, delicacies cooked with animal blood, and a pair of wooden chopsticks. This witch actually knows something about elves. Although she was equally frightened, she was calmer than the girl behind her. Bring it here. Shah-Ir snapped his fingers, and the wind around the terrace turned into pieces of white paper. These pieces of white paper combined together to form elf-style tables and chairs. There's no rush to use the gray fog, so let's eat first. Sir, we have prepared a lot of food. If it suits your appetite, I will have them bring it over. Schiffelin and her daughter respectfully placed the tray on the stone table. She lowered her head slightly and never dared to look at Shah-Ir's face. You can prepare more food. I've been at sea for a long time and haven't had a good meal. Shah-Ir was neither polite nor deliberately mysterious. He picked up the chopsticks and started to enjoy the food, but the amount of food was not enough to fill his stomach. Schiffelin glanced at her youngest daughter and asked her to go out and deliver the prepared food, while she stayed behind to pour wine for Shah-Ir. Are you descendants of giants? Shah-Ir took a sip of the local red wine and asked casually. A guardian, lord of the warrior path sequence 5, and an astrologer, witch of the hermit path sequence 5. Not bad in this remote place. My husband has some giant blood, but he is not a direct descendant of the giants. The family is a family of witches, who have always lived here. Schifrin recounted the history of the past territory and refilled Shur's glass of wine. This branch of witches has always lived in this forest by the sea, while the branch of warriors migrated here to avoid disaster after the death of the giant king in the ancient sun god period. There are some other low sequence extraordinary paths here, but the highest is only sequence 7, which is not as good as the witch and warrior ones. What she said was basically consistent with the information Shah-Ir learned from the spirit world. After dinner, night, Shah-Ir came to the bedroom inside the castle. He constructed a closed spiritual environment in the room, and then took out the heart of the mist wolf, which could be used as half of a seal corresponding to a sequence 3 ancient scholar. I'm not good at divination, but I know someone who is. Shah-Ir began to construct a ritual to pray to Mr. Fool above the gray fog. A fool who does not belong to this era. You are the mysterious master above the gray fog. You are the yellow and black king who controls good luck. I pray for your gaze, I pray for your response. 4 candles, 4 kinds of food made from paper, the extracted essential oils requested by the fool, a spell with precise targeting. Shah-Ir performed the prayer ceremony earnestly. He carved his own luck rune, hoping to replay the recording of the fool's response to him in the 5th era in the 4th era. I know. The ceremony was a success. Shah-Ir replayed the recording and heard Mr. Fool's majestic voice. Right now, he held the demon wolf's heart and began to summon historical projections during the mysterious ceremony. Summons the historical poor projection of Klein Moretti from the future 5th era. The historical fog of the real world obviously does not record the history of the future. It is also impossible to summon projections from the future. But above the gray fog, that space beyond reality, and the historical fog within it, are different. Shah-Ir had really seen Klein Moretti. He had pushed him and hugged him. In theory, it wouldn't be that difficult for a half-angel to summon a sequence 9 historical projection. As the gray fog surged and following Mr. Fool's voice, Shah-Ir seemed to have grasped something. It took him some effort to pull out the historical projection. This is an ordinary fortune teller whose face is shrouded in mist and cannot be seen clearly. Shah-Ir had a hunch that if he lifted the spiritual blockade of the room, this false, historical poor projection would soon disappear. In Tingan City, on Daffodil Street, Klein, who was sleeping, turned over with some uneasiness. But he didn't wake up and was still sleeping soundly. Not surprisingly, in the gray fog space, Klein's personal information was recorded in the historical mist. Shah-Ir was rarely nervous. Although this historical projection looks mysterious. But as a summoner, how could he not know this guy's level? He is a sequence 9 fortune teller with his face covered. May God bless you. Shah-Ir separated a virtual personality and entered the body of the historical projection of the fortune teller, trying to manipulate this unintelligent image. The creature moved. It stretched its arms, as if getting familiar with this state. Go on. Seeing that the first step was successful, Shah-Ir didn't waste any words and shifted his mind to the historical projection. Occupy the next house, comes to the center of the room and starts walking in a square counterclockwise. With every step, chant softly. Fusheng Xuanwang Immortal Lord. Fusheng Xuanwang Tianjin. The God of Blessing and Prosperity Xuanwang. Fusheng Xuanwang Tianzun. After returning to his seat, Shah-Ir waited for him to enter the gray fog space like Klein. However, nothing happened, except that the gray-white mist surrounding it became thicker. They started out as pirates, so how can they be so strict in preventing counterfeiting? Shah-Ir was helpless. After all, he was not Klein Moretti. He drew a lucky symbol without giving up. A deep red light flickered. Sure, the fortune teller has arrived at the mysterious space above the gray fog. Hee, 1 barcode per person. Shah-Ir looked at the gray-white mist flowing like water. He didn't know what to say, but he just came up like that. Then why can't I pull up the historical projections of other fortune tellers of this era? Shah-Ir thought of his several failed attempts and looked around vigilantly, searching for the location of the Tianzun curtain. Then the curtain just stays quietly on the ground in the distance. Perhaps because of the special environment above the gray fog, it is relatively stable, unlike the sealed objects in reality, which will cause huge chaos if they are not sealed. Shah-Ir looked away, moved his feet lightly, and moved away from the position of Tianzun's curtain. When the crimson star that symbolized itself lit up, it snapped its fingers, and its spirit responded automatically. The door of sacrifice opened, and the Book of Calamity was sacrificed above the gray fog. Chapter 72. This is a divination, first order required. Shah-Ir waved his hand, and the Book of Calamity instantly moved into his hand. Now, with the title of Occupying the Lower House, I finally enjoy some of the treatment that the legitimate successor of Tianzun should have. If I remember correctly, the gray fog space has a bonus for divination. Even the gods can predict the future, and the gods themselves are just as good as non-existent when it comes to anti-divination. Shah-Ir weighed the Book of Natural Disasters in his hand, and he was eager to try it. Klein often uses dream divination. The Book of Disasters in Shah-Ir's hand has some connection with the second personality of the fantasy dragon. Then let's try dream divination. Shah-Ir sat directly on the ground. He tapped the gray mist lightly, and the mist turned into a piece of white paper. He wrote on it with his spirituality. The location of Grossel's travels. Shah-Ir sat cross-legged while holding the Book of Natural Disasters, and recited it silently 7 times. With the help of meditation, he entered a dream. He saw a gray world, where there was an ancient castle. In the ancient castle, red-eyed vampires were enjoying scarlet wine. On the bookshelf behind him, a book with a brown cover appeared in his field of vision. Finally found you. The dream world was shattered. Shah-Ir didn't waste any words and directly threw the scene he saw to his crimson star. Real world. Shah-Ir opened his eyes. Erodes in his mental island has already locked onto the specific location through this picture and the spiritual world. Boom. A sound of thunder. Shah-Ir turned into lightning and flew towards the central plains of the northern continent. In the future, this area will belong to the Republic of Intis and the Kingdom of Phaenopater. Outside the bedroom of the castle, Schiffelin, who was wearing a loose nightgown and serving outside the door, was a little at a loss after hearing the thunder. Butler Luo Side came out to make arrangements and told these people to do what they should do. The interior of the vampire castle. The vampire viscount, who was leaning comfortably on the chair in the study enjoying the girl's blood, was suddenly disturbed. The blood servant who was tidying up the study had lost too much blood and his arms were weak, so he accidentally broke a vase. The Blood Clan Viscount was startled by the sound of porcelain breaking, the wine glass in his hand was crushed, and blood flowed down his palm. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean it." The blood servant knelt on the ground in fear, wanting to beg for forgiveness from his master. However, those scarlet eyes were full of cruelty. He grabbed the blood servant's neck, pierced his skin with his sharp teeth, and began to brutally suck the blood from the blood servant's body. The blood servant felt her life slipping away. She struggled to resist, her nails becoming long and narrow. However, a trace of disdain flashed across the face of the vampire viscount. The blood servant who was being manipulated still wanted to rebel against her master. Brush. The blood viscount's arm was scratched by the blood servant's nails, blood splattered on the bookshelf behind him, and blood dripped on the brown cover. "You lowly beast." The blood clan viscount directly twisted the blood servant's neck, and before he could continue to vent his anger at being offended, his figure disappeared and was sucked into Grossel's travels. The other servants in the castle who heard the noise soon discovered the disappearance of the vampire viscount. The blood servants who were restricted by the viscount seemed to be bewitched. They united and started a rebellion, and a fire began to burn in the castle. No one noticed that a book in the study disappeared. It was taken out of the castle along with other valuables by a servant who wanted to take advantage of the chaos, and then lost accidentally on the way. After passing through various animals and coincidences, it changed its appearance and hid itself again. "You're quite a runner." Shah-Ir lifted up the soil and found the Travels of Grossel, disguised as a storm Bible in the snake's nest underground. It was not difficult to locate the book. Rhodes had been watching it through the spirit world, but he did not know which book he was looking for and had no way to find it. After knowing what the specific book was, Rhodes' monitoring was almost all-encompassing. Even if the book was lost due to a few coincidences, it would be quickly found again with the help of the gray fog. This book was published in such a hurry that it was too late to cover up some traces of occultism. These are all clues that can be used in the next battle. Shah-Ir had no idea how much trouble he had encountered in order to catch up with this book. It's possible that arranging the angel by coincidence would be detected, but it's still possible to arrange it indirectly. The vampire viscount was actually a direct descendant of a vampire marquis. Shah-Ir was in a hurry and beat up the vampire marquis. After throwing him back to the spirit world, this bastard with a very thick health bar actually dared to come back. He opened the summoning gate and directly summoned a vampire duke, a hand of the sequence 2, creator. Shah-Ir risked his life to take the risk of being injured, and relying on the natural disaster characteristics in his body, he withstood the attack of a blood clan duke from a distance. The stupid marquis who was affected by coincidence was smashed half of his body and thrown back. The next sentence is, "I am an elf, and I killed that great-grandson, would I dare not admit it. If you keep looking for trouble, I won't mind killing you first before I kill your great-grandson. Then run away at the speed of light." After so much trouble, Shah-Ir finally got the damn book. "You're quite a runner, grandson." Shah-Ir picked up the storm book on the ground, and gathered lightning to strike it hard as if to vent his anger. "Elf, how dare you blaspheme!" An angry roar came from the sky. Shah-Ir looked up and saw a demigod wearing the robes of a storm church clergyman. This guy was wearing a glowing ring on his hand, and it was obvious that he had been teleported here by chance through the spirit world. Due to coincidence, the teleportation location was deviated, and even Rhodes, whose attention was distracted, was tricked by Grossel's travels. What a bad omen. Shah-Ir had no time to deal with the idiot in the sky. Silver lightning surrounded his hair, and the area of several hundred meters around him was covered by lightning that had no distinction between enemy and friend. With the cover of a large-scale attack, Shah-Ir cooperated with the Zan Shah Jah, on standby above the gray fog, using simple Elven language to complete the prayer sacrifice at the speed of light, and through the broken book above the gray fog. "You damned heretic! The Lord will not let you go." The demigod of the Church of the Storm had little ability to resist before he was dragged down from the sky by Shah-Ir and blasted into pieces. After the collision with the vampire duke, most of the natural disaster characteristics sealed in Shah Ayer's body have been digested, and he can no longer control his madness. Shah Ayer held in his hand a fresh disaster priest attribute and a blood-stained gate seal. He casually rubbed the seal on his clothes, put it away, and then used the power of natural disasters to restore the extraordinary characteristics and erase the remaining mental imprint inside. Snort. Suddenly, Shah Ayer seemed to hear a cold snort. The sound was like a thunder exploding in his mind. Without a Rhodes in the Mind Island to steady himself, Shah Ayer almost lost control on the spot. This unlucky high priest of disaster actually received some attention from the Lord of Storms. His extraordinary characteristics actually contained some spiritual imprints of Leodoro. Boom, boom, boom. The sky was quickly filled with thunderclouds, and lightning flashed down with even greater violence than before. Just as Shah Ayer crushed the demigod of the Church of Storms to death, the Lord of Storms will now crush him to death in the same way. The lightning was too fast and covered too wide an area, leaving Shah Ayer no room to dodge at all. After the storm, all traces of the occult here were wiped out. However, the storm did not dissipate, but became more violent, and thunderclouds began to spread. Before the horrific natural disaster struck, another sun rose in the sky. The Lord of Storms' reckless behavior has obviously caused some dissatisfaction. This is already fertile land near the center of the northern continent, and you have chopped it up. Are our believers going to sleep in the sea? Chapter 73 The World in the Book, First Order. Above the gray fog, the fortune teller patted his chest in fear. You rotten book. He looked at the Travels of Grossel in front of him that had just been smeared with elf blood. Lifting this book is like kicking a key. The fantasy dragon's backup plan really wanted to kill him. If it weren't for the gray fog space, a secret place isolated from the outside world, even if Shah Ayer hadn't been struck by the Storm Lord, he would definitely have continued to encounter various accidents if he continued to move around with the book. Fortunately, he had already guessed that things would not go so smoothly, and sacrificed his blood to the gray fog space in advance. After the Storm Lord's ultimate move that swept the ground without distinguishing between friend and foe, it would be difficult for him to divine anything. It was even more ridiculous to occupy Shah Ayer across the gray fog space and the world in the book. Inside Grossel's travels, Shah Ayer fell like a wolf fox into a forest. His legs were shaking and he tried several times but failed to get up from the ground. He gasped violently, digesting the fear and trembling that came from his heart. Damn, the Lord of Storms is really scary, haha. Shah Ayer smiled, his hair gradually shrank, and his eyes gradually closed, but the fish scales all over his body were still attached to his body surface. The aura of madness and tyranny suppressed the animals in the forest and they dared not make any sound. It was obviously not a direct attack, just a mental mark, but it almost crippled Shah Ayer, the half-angel. Thanks to the Storm Church, he took another set of Storm Path Sequence 9, Sequence 4. He has taken 3 sets in a row. Even if he removes the natural disaster characteristics in his body, at the level of a saint, he can barely be considered invincible in combat power. Shah Ayer was not polite and ate what he was supposed to eat. Mr. Futuregate had even eaten 3 of the Sequence 2 characteristics, so what was wrong with him eating a few more lower-level characteristics? Only a poor man couldn't afford it. Rhodes, have you investigated the world in the book? Shah Ayer got up from the ground, covered his head and asked the magic mirror in the Island of Mind. He first came into contact with a real angel, and then was looked at by the superior god of this path. He was almost unable to suppress the natural disaster characteristics in his body. He estimated that he would soon be promoted to a real natural disaster. I looked up the history of the world in the book. This world has city-states and kingdoms built by humans. At the same time, we found the locations of those people you mentioned. Rhodes shared the intelligence he had gathered with Shale. Giants, elves, ascetics, including the vampire viscount who had recently arrived, basically moved around between human cities and villages. The only thing I can be thankful for is that you are here, so my anchor in the real world won't lose its function. Shah-Ir marked the location of the elf and then chose to integrate the natural disaster characteristics in his body. The entire world in the book began to be shrouded in thick dark clouds. The imaginary human rulers and civilians in the world of the book looked up at the sky in horror at the same time. The giant Grossel, the elf Ciatas, the ascetic snowman, and the blood clan Viscount looked at the lightning jumping in the sky. These sequence 5 strong men had different thoughts, but before they could react, the natural disaster came. Thick dark clouds suddenly covered the sky like an iron curtain. Dazzling lightning leapt wildly between the clouds, shrouding the entire world in the book in a strange bluish-white light. The rulers of the human city-states rushed out of the palace on their knees, while the common people stood there with their heads raised, sobs of fear emanating from their throats. This doomsday-like sense of oppression made everyone's knees weak, as if even the air had solidified into a solid object pressing on their spines. Suddenly, the earth made a deafening roar. A crack dozens of feet wide pierced out from the ground like the fangs of a giant beast, instantly tearing the towering city walls and the granite temple in half. When the spire collapsed, the mother holding the baby and the priest holding the candlestick fell into the ground together. The screams one after another were swallowed up by the roar of the earth's crust movement. The volcano in the north that had been silent for 1,000 years suddenly exploded, and red magma swept down like a torrent carrying boiling ashes. Where the lava flowed, wooden houses caught fire like paper like pillars of fire, stone fortresses twisted and collapsed in the high temperature, and the fleeing crowd turned into burning fireballs, leaving distorted silhouettes on the scorched earth. The air was filled with the acrid smell of burning flesh and sulfur, while the rolling volcanic ash had dyed half the sky blood red. The ruler slumped on his jewel-encrusted throne, watching the capital he had ruled for 30 years reduced to ruins in thunder and fire. When a bolt of lightning as thick as a bucket struck the last bell tower, the roar of the giant bronze bell falling to the ground seemed to sound the death knell for this fictional civilization. Shah-Ir transformed into a true natural disaster and wiped out the civilization of an entire country. This made his promotion even more perfect on the basis that he had already completed the promotion ceremony. Above the gray fog, the fortune teller will represent the Crimson Star of Shale and the Crimson Star of Butler Rorsted, through spiritual connection, contacting the gray fog space and the power of erodes, so that Shale's anchor can also provide assistance for Shale's general ascension even in the world of the book. Shah-Ir seemed to want to test the limits of the world in the book. After destroying the human kingdom in the world of the book, he also spread various natural disasters to other, unopened, places, destroying the new map that had not yet been interpreted in the world of the book. Roar, roar, roar. The sound of dragon roars rang out. On the snow-covered mountains, giant frost dragons were awakened from their slumber. Shah-Ir stood on the ruins of the shattered civilization, with a longbow compressed by strong wind in his hand. Draw the bow and shoot the arrow. Lightning arrows shot down the frightened dragon in the sky. If this is all Engleweed's resurrection trick is, today I will just turn the entire world in the book upside down. Shah-Ir waited for more changes in the book. His powerful mental power scanned the entire world, looking for every place where abnormalities might exist. It is only the beginning of the fourth era. In the original time and space, until the fifth era, this book could evolve into a gatekeeper like the King of the North. With less than 3,000 years of time, this book should have more power. Shah-Ir waited for a while, but no further changes occurred. The entire world in the book seemed to be reset, and some survivors appeared in the completely destroyed human kingdom. While crying out in agony for their lost relatives and friends, these survivors began to rebuild their former homes. Among them are giants, ascetics, and vampires. They are all in the ranks of survivors, rejoicing that they can live again after the natural disaster. Hee. Shah-Ir looked towards the snowfield in the north again, and it had disappeared, as if it had never appeared. The destruction he brings to the book's civilization is seen as part of the book's plot development. The main characters in those books are naturally the lucky ones among the natural disasters. Chapter 74, The Elf's Paranoia. Shah-Ir reached out to his side, and a figure surrounded by blue bubbles appeared. He snapped his fingers, and the balloon mixed with the power of dreams slowly melted away, revealing the elf woman inside. She has soft, shiny black hair tied in a simple ponytail, and soft facial features, which are clearly different from the people of the northern continent. She wears a brown ancient hunter coat and trousers. She is an active person in the Second Era. An ancient spirit from the Twin Ages. Her intuition was very sharp. The moment she woke up, she raised the longbow hanging at her waist. After seeing Shah Ayer's slightly pointed ears and features that leaned towards the western continent, she was obviously stunned for a moment, then dropped the weapon. He ran straight into Shah Ayer's arms. I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought I would never see other elves since I came to this damn place. She held Shah Ayer tightly with trembling hands, her nails almost digging into him, and her throat was sobbing. The usually violent and crazy female elf couldn't hold back her tears. If I weren't an angel, she would have broken 2 of my ribs. Shah Ayer rubbed Shada's cheek in a relaxed manner, feeling that it was worthwhile to use psychological invisibility to reduce the angel's own aura. What's so great about angels? Just know it yourself. The two looked at each other, and in sync, they started to have a picnic, that is, the elves had a picnic. As the storm passed, the 2 elves summoned the wind and rain very easily, going up to the sky and into the sea. It was a struggle of strength. Ciatas obviously has too much pressure to release. She bravely charged towards the elven scourge. His body is strong and agile, like a knight. As time goes by, Shah Ayer played with Shatas's smooth hair, venting a little of the madness that was inevitable after becoming an angel. You can't stand this kind of torture, why don't you become a demigod? Shah Ayer poked Shatasi, who was still a little dazed. How do I get promoted? When Shatas heard Shah Ayer say that she couldn't do it, she gritted her teeth, took a bite, and then licked it like a kitten. I'll give you a portion of the sequence 4 characteristics. The promotion ceremony is to take a potion during the earthquake and tsunami, and hold on until the end. I will help you complete the ritual. Even if you are a little crazy due to lack of anchor, I can accompany you to vent your madness. And those survivors from the human kingdom can also serve as your anchors. It won't be difficult to make them believe in you. Shah Ayer felt that this book could still be useful to him, and Shah Tush could just help him out. Moreover, Sequence 5 is indeed a bit restrained, and Demigod is almost the same. Shah Ayer was now an angel. He took the initiative to draw out a set of Beander characteristics of a Sequence 4 disaster high priest and handed it to Ciatas. However, facing this almost instinctive attraction, Ciatas did not look at this extraordinary characteristic. She hugged Shah Ayer's neck, put her head on his chest, and asked in a sad tone. Has the king really fallen? Although she already knew the answer from the ascetic snowman, she still hoped that the human was just lying to her and that the elf king was still alive and leading the elves to rule the world. The ancient sun god killed the elf king and the dragon king, severely injured and caused the death of the phoenix ancestor and the giant king. The demon king sealed himself and dared not continue to move on the earth. The era of the ancient gods has ended, and the era of the ancient sun god has also ended. The 3 angel kings have divided up some of the authority. The current lord of storms is the wind angel who once served the ancient sun god. The new era has only opened a prelude, and has not officially begun yet. You have been in this book for an epoch and a half. Shah Ayer patted Ciatas on the back and said, you are probably the first elf singer to live this long. He told Ciatas about the changes in the outside world, which Ciatas could not escape even if she wanted to. That false god. The power of the storm should belong to our elven king. Shatas's eyes were red. If she hadn't vented her emotions, she would have exploded. Gods also fall. Shah Ayer touched Shatas's head and said, if the original god could fall, who else could be the exception? Where are the queen and the god of luck? Ciatas asked after adjusting her mood. She knew what happened to the Blood clan after the death of the original vampire, and was very worried about the current living environment of the elves. Kashinam and the god of luck are alive. Our living environment isn't that good, but it's not that bad either. We can just make do for now. Shah Ayer felt a little annoyed when he talked about making do. I couldn't help it when I saw Qianxi, the demigod of the Church of the Storm. He did run away, but it is not impossible for Leodoro to directly attack the Rorstad Islands across the Sonia Sea. The mermaid he raised. Fortunately, she was packed up and thrown into the sea near the ruins of the War of Gods. This is also inevitable. Before he came out, most of the elves were sealed in a semi-dream by Kazanamu, separated from reality, the spirit world. The star realm is isolated and the losses are still within an acceptable range. It might be better if he didn't kill the people of the Storm Church, but if he doesn't kill the people of the Storm Church, does that mean the Storm Church won't kill them? How is it possible? Throughout the Fourth Age, the leaderless sea creatures and dragons were extraordinary materials for walking. Aren't elves like that? If you can't take care of so many elves, then seal them up. Good years in dreams can also provide faith. It won't become a weak point. How dare you address the queen by her first name? Ciatis glared, grabbed Shah Ayer's hair, and punched him. Shah Ayer blocked it casually, then threw Shah Tassi to the ground with his backhand, leaving her stunned. The one in front of you is a Sequence 2 angel, known in ancient times as a subordinate god. I am also the leader of the new generation of elves. Do you still want to rebel? Shah Ayer hugged Shah Tush into his arms again, not letting her see the regret in his eyes. He was not in a very good mood. This is a very realistic problem. If he doesn't stand up soon, the image of his hometown will be labeled as a place of slavery. He didn't like the fact that an Oriental, who looked similar to him, was being hunted down by a foreign race. This even directly affected Shah Ayer's future. He didn't even want to care about the Backland smog. People from the northern continent, what does life or death have to do with him? Did the elves enslave humans in the Second Age? So what? Leaving the western continent, walking out of the Chinese land and coming here, who are we one family with these overseas humans? What happened to the elves becoming nobles and leaders among the human race? I'm not here to do charity. If you don't want to be slaves, you can join the dragons and the demon wolves. And, although we have bullied you, you cannot bully us. Shah Ayer felt irritable for no reason. The whistling sound of the wind seemed to be his breathing. The sky suddenly became dark. The survivors, who had just crawled out of the ruins, looked at the sky again with fear and despair. The abnormal astronomical phenomenon did not last long, and Shah Ayer finally controlled his emotions. In the Second Age, the elves killed many humans from the northern continent. We have to admit that we suffered losses in the Third Era, but as for the future, it all depends on our own abilities. He did not hate ordinary people in the North and South continents, but as soon as the elves with Oriental faces appeared, they would be surrounded and killed even if they had no background. This was not acceptable. I'm sorry, this isn't directed at you. Shah Ayer threw a spiritual soothing shot, summoning a spiral stream of water to clean Shah Tassi, who was sweating all over and whose hair was stuck together. Are you, really our new slave god? Were you the one who caused the previous natural disaster? Ciatis recovered from her uncontrollable trembling and was reluctant to let go of the arm holding Shah Ayer. She thought Shah Ayer was at most Sequence 3, but he was actually a subordinate god. A queen who obeys God like that. This era, Sequence 2, is called Angel. Look at how weak your legs are. Hurry up and make me a demigod. Then conquer the human survivors from the world in the book and make this place the way the elves like it. We may need to migrate many elves to live here in the future. Shah Ayer directly forced the Beander characteristic of Sequence 4 into Ciata's mouth. Upgrade me to demigod quickly. Chapter 75 Script Crusher. Grossel's Travels. The World of Books. Shah Ayer helped Shah Taspu ascend to become a Sequence 4 demigod. Then leave a virtual personality on her. This is not a means of control, but a precaution. Shah Ayer is worried that after he leaves the world in the book, there will be no angel to keep watch, and the book may cause trouble. He really wanted to explore the real kingdom of the fantasy dragon. But it is not suitable now. He lacks the extraordinary characteristics of the Dreamweaver of Audience Path Sequence 3 and cannot bring his body into the sea of collective subconsciousness. He also needs the Dreamweaver's ability to separate his past identity and activate the vest. Shah can solve the problem by killing a Sequence 3 dragon. However, in order to prevent the possible backup plan of the fantasy dragon, it is safer to separate a part of Khazanam. How are you going to leave? Siadas obviously wanted to leave with Shah, but she suppressed the impulse. Under normal circumstances, the exit of the book world will only appear when the plot of the book world is completed. Now is not the time for an exit to appear. At this time, the level 2 seal of the portal path seized from the demigod of the Storm Church came into play. I'll call out. Shah was wearing a ring that sparkled with starlight, and in his hand appeared a long sword, made of lightning. The outside worlds, occupying the next home, provides a coordinate. Shah swiped towards the distant sky, and the sky seemed to have a crack. One sword opens the sky gate. He turned into lightning and left the world in the book directly. I have been trapped in such a place for nearly 2,000 years. Siadas watched Shah break through the barrier of the world in the book and leave. She couldn't help but try it herself. It's just far from having this effect. Shah is a special case. A living scourge could be trapped by a book. This crappy book is hoping that Mr. Natural Disaster will ascend to heaven sooner. The Fifth Era. Tingan City. Shah clenched his hands and gestured towards the sky. But nothing happened. Delete the account and reopen it. What are you looking at? A beautiful lady came over with a glass of red wine. She has a witch's face, and her temperament is a mixture of mature charm and innocent romance. This is Madame Sharon, the widow of the old baron of the Hoy family, a Sequence 6 witch of pleasure. I'm looking at the stars. Shah said without turning his head. After becoming an angel, he found that power was much more interesting than women. He didn't want to waste time talking to the witch anymore. He wanted to create a natural disaster and use lightning to set off fireworks in crowded places. Shah is now on vacation and recuperating in Tingan City. He will definitely come to visit Senator Maynard, and Senator Maynard will drag him to the banquet. This seems to be a flaw of the noble identity. I believe that Emperor Grossel must have suffered from it. Shah didn't want to pay attention to Madame Sharon, but Madame Sharon didn't want to leave. Her time of joy after ascending to Sequence 6 was not too long, and she needed to vent the madness accumulated in her body through acting. She also had to mediate the conflict between the Conservative Party and the new party in Tingan City. Congressman John Maynard's youngest son was a good choice. Most importantly, the 308 that Shah brought with him had the extraordinary ability to passively reduce anxiety. This is really attractive to witches, especially those who have accumulated madness in their bodies and have some psychological problems. You can only see the stars in Tingan. Backland's nights are always shrouded in haze. Mrs. Sharon continued the conversation by finding a topic to talk about. She had tried it and found that her mental state improved a lot when she stayed within 5 meters of Shah. The other party definitely has a good seal with the audience channel. So what if this is a Beander from the Church of Night? It's not like she hasn't seen the Nighthawks before. Those low to mid-sequence Beyonders simply couldn't tell that she was a witch. She coveted this sealed item so much, if only she could use it after playing the role. You should be more polite. Mrs. Sharon, young gentlemen are always nervous. I hope you can understand. When Councilman Maynard saw his youngest son standing with Mrs. Sharon, he walked over and smiled. The congressman knew that his youngest son could not handle the situation, so he planned to let his son get in touch with other women of the right age. This level is more suitable for a mature gentleman like him. Do you know that in the original time and space, you were stabbed to death in bed by this woman? Shah looked at his cheap father speechlessly. His monthly pocket money is still reimbursed by this person. For the sake of the money, why don't you save him? Councillor Maynard is dead, and the next councillor is also Councillor Maynard. The death of Councillor Maynard does not seem to mean much to the city of Tingan. You really work hard in Tingan City. Your mother, who has been busy trying to gain more support for you in Backland, will definitely be pleased to know this. Shah's 2 words hit Congressman Maynard directly in the throat. John Maynard glared at Shah. I brought you out here to broaden my horizons, and you came to ruin the place. It's a necessary sacrifice. It's normal to work hard. You'll understand when you grow up. John Maynard chuckled twice. Well, I'm a little tired, so I'll go back to the guest room to rest. Keep up your hard work, Mr. Future Mayor. Shaw bowed to Councillor Maynard. Then he clinked glasses with Mrs. Sharon. Goodbye, I'll be generous with my compliments next time. He turned and walked towards the bedroom in the villa. Anyway, this villa belongs to the Maynard family. He is a clergyman, and this is not leaving early. He is going to attend evening classes and pray devoutly to the goddess. Congressman Maynard, I feel a little unwell and may need to rest for a while. Mrs. Sharon smiled apologetically. It doesn't matter, health is the most important thing. Mr. John could only understand and then watched Mrs. Sharon walk in the direction Shaw left. The middle-aged gentleman touched his face somewhat unconfidently. He was not disappointed and soon started chatting and laughing with the other lady. In Zhangwill's original script was that Mrs. Sharon was eager to digest the madness in her body through acting, and she also had the task of stirring up a complete confrontation between the Conservative Party and the new party in Tingan City. So he took the risk of killing Senator John Maynard, which led to the investigation of the Nighthawks. Shaw really didn't want to take the time to attend another funeral. So after one night, Mrs. Sharon borrowed sealed artifact 3089 through a trick. Her mental state improved a lot due to the dual effects of role-playing and psychological comfort. It is not necessarily that such radical measures will be taken again. As for how the script will be written after ends, Shaw doesn't care, he will leave in 2 days. Morning. The room was filled with that exciting fragrance. Shaw had some idea of why Grossel had complained about being boring many times in his diary. Last night, Mrs. Sharon had a seizure or something, and revealed some suspicious signs of being a witch. Shaw had no intention of investigating or reporting the case. He took a shower and then took a carriage to the Blackthorn Security Company. Since we are here now, we might as well give old Neil a hand. A matter of words. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.